Go ahead, I can manage both.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Rhinow. I'm trustee and mayor pro tem of the village. I'm calling this meeting to order Tuesday, December 17th, at the regular meeting of the BOT. The time that we're starting is approximately 6:04 in the evening. This meeting is streamed on the village website. The public can also participate via Zoom. Instructions and overall public participation guidelines are listed on the website and on page 5 of the meeting packet. The Village of Los Ranchos is providing the ability for the public to participate in hybrid meetings. As with any application, digital service, or software, the opportunity for failure can occur. Therefore, the village is not responsible for the inability to connect to the meeting, either by Zoom meeting, the Zoom meeting link, or viewing live stream. The meeting video and audio are recorded and will be available online after the meeting on the village website. Let me call the roll. Trustee Benavides.
Here.
Trustee Kiefer.
Here.
Trustee Ranovich.
Here.
Trustee Ranow here. Okay. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Where's our Boy Scout? Yeah. Christmas.
So the first item is to approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve or amend the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion from the governing body?
I have none.
Trustee Kiefer?
None.
Trustee Ranovich?
None.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to call the question. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Ranovich?
Yes.
Trustee Ranow, yes. Okay, motion carries. This is an opportunity now for general public comment. Let me make a suggestion here. Only those participants who signed up prior to the meeting can speak on topics that do not appear on the agenda, and will be given 3 minutes to do so. No action can occur on these items. If you have questions, please feel free to contact staff during business hours. And again, those of you who have signed up to speak about the letter on 9B, you will have a chance to do that when we get to that point of the agenda. So Danielle, in terms of general public comment, can you please call up the first individual?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and trustees. Our first individual will be Mr. Ben Roberts. Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
How's that? Well, okay, my name is Ben Roberts. I live at 627 Ranchitos Road here in the village. And I'm speaking to ask for more information, either in a future meeting or perhaps a piece in the Village Vision on how the village is responding to increased traffic congestion and commuter traffic through the village. Increasing development in the village, including the development at 4th and Osuna, is increasing non-resident traffic on top of the existing resident traffic into and through the village, and there's no obvious place for this traffic to go as it increases. One example of this that impacts me directly is the stop sign at Ranchitos and Guadalupe Trail North. Traffic there in both the morning and the evening. There's a large number of vehicles that run that stop sign, sometimes at high speed. It's only a matter of time until there's a serious accident there. And while I 100% support the developments on 4th Street, the narrowing of that and the benefits and the improvements in quality of life that's going to bring, it's also going to change traffic patterns within the village and push traffic onto residential streets. So again, I'd really like to hear more from the village leadership about how they plan to respond to that, how many plans there are to push this traffic onto, commuter thoroughfares and out of the village. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Camille Vados, we'll take the microphone to you, ma'am.
Camille Fados, 427 El Paraíso Road, Los Ranchos. And I never write comments before, so I speak from the top of my head. In terms of traffic, I too would like to know what the strategies are from the village in terms of controlling the traffic. And Peladrone isn't even opened yet. And there's 200 plus rooms or apartments. There's a proposed small grocery store and a mini hotel. And I'd like to know where the traffic is going to, what's going to happen with the traffic on Osuna and 4th. And I live, now it's a busy street, and it never used to be. And I've lived there forever, and I'm still there. And, I'm concerned about safety and traffic impact. And when you say to call the village staff, they don't always know. And either they don't know or they hesitate to answer. So if you call about impact, traffic impact, and it's an infrastructure concern, then it should be able to be addressed. And I've brought it up more than once in terms of public speak comments. Also, we have a safety officer, Mr. Radovich, and I've been attacked 4 years ago by 2 pit bulls, and I wrote a comment to our animal control officer because Bernalillo will not come out if the village has an officer.
Thank you, Ms. Vados. Your time is up.
Well, I'm going to continue
Mr.
what I
Tom
needed
Donnellan.
to say.
Mr. Tom Donnellan, if you would please approach the podium.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Tom Donlin. I reside at 6668 Edgewood Drive. Pardon me. There's a question that I've posed. I've sent a couple emails asking, and I haven't gotten any answers. And it's curious to me as to what, because it may well have been done, but on the Palindrome project, we hired Palindrome according to an RFP that was based on the Metropolitan Redevelopment Plan. Has their delivery ever been compared to what was requested on that RFP? And if so, when was that done? I mean, in particular, it called for a small parcel of residential up against the ditch. It called for a plaza to be at the corner of 4th and Osuna. It called for businesses to be on both 4th Street and Osuna. And all three of those really are not what we've gotten. And have they been evaluated in terms of what the village said they were supposed to deliver and with what they delivered? Were there any reviews that said, oh, okay, we'll give you a waiver on these requests, these things that were in the scope of work of the RFP? Because I think those are also pieces that are beyond just the zoning. That was where the village had the opportunity to be able to say, are you delivering the project we asked you to deliver? And I was just wondering, has the village officers, trustees, and the mayor ever ruled on that, and has it ever been compared? And the other thing is I was at the DFA meeting, budget meeting, when Tammy and Danielle were honored for their excellent service to the village, and I just want to say thank you to them for continuing to be such great employees and deliverers of service for the village. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Martinez?
Good evening. Bob Martinez, 301 Enchanted Valley Road. First, I want to thank you guys for your service. As a commissioner, I know what it takes to sit in your positions and do what you need to do. Merry Christmas, and I'm coming here to make a suggestion. And my suggestion is to create a committee. And that committee would look at the properties that the village of Los Ranchos owns and see if the committee can bring to you guys the ability to understand potential income, potential possibilities, a lot of potential that can come from what we existingly own, and whether they stay vacant or whatever comes to existence. And if you guys are interested, I'd be more than welcome to be part of the committee, because one of the things from my point as a commissioner, what I've done to the people that have come to talk to us is I tell them, you need to bring to us. We are here to serve you. If you have ideas, if you have, et cetera, come to us with it. So I want to be the first one to come with something that can be done, as well as other things that hopefully as we mend, as we grow, as we go into 2025, that we can really look at finding where our issues and our problems are and start fixing them. Thank you. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Ms. Julia Mummert?
Hi, I'm Julia Mummert. I live at 330 Vineyard Road Northwest. We've lived there for 21 years. I'm following the advice I heard at the P&Z meeting last week to get up and get on public comment, because that's how hopefully things get more heard. And I'm grateful to Fred. I apologize, I don't want to butcher his last name. We got the no through traffic signs put up on Vineyard when Osuna was shut down eastbound for however many weeks that was. But we only got ours up after we made a comment, and Willow already had theirs up. So that was a bit of a thing. But we are grateful for the signs being put up. We're grateful that they were put back up when they were taken down sometimes, maybe by passersby, I don't know. Last week at the Mayor-to-be's meet and greet, he actually brought up Vineyard, and I'm grateful to Hank, again, didn't get the last name, for bringing up that there's supposed to be a new county development at that space behind Sonic on 4th Street. That's just going to add more traffic. That's another multi-story proposal, and that's just going to be even more traffic to that area. So, and thank you also, I think Trustee Kiefer had brought that to the incoming mayor's comments that he made. So a question I have is, why cannot Vineyard, Willow, some of these other streets be dead-end streets? We have dead-end streets like La Plata, which I'm going to assume maybe is in Albuquerque and not in the village, but like Naravisa. Why can't that be proposed, that they be made dead-end streets? And then a more immediate question, an urgent question, and we've brought it up before. At Fourth and Vineyard, those curbs are in terrible shape. If someone were to be coming in with a wheelchair, they're terrible. They're a real mess. And it also invites our bigger trucks, delivery trucks, to use Vineyard as a cut-through street between Second and Fourth. Is it possible to also get signs? I mean, are trucks allowed to go down our street? We're talking large delivery trucks daily are using our road. I don't know if they're being used on Willow. I see the sign that they can't use Osuna, so where do they go? But at the very least, the curbs are not, would not be very wheelchair friendly at this time. And again, just thank you for the response to getting the no through traffic. That was really, really helpful and really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Lauren Micklejohn?
I'm gonna wait and save my comments for 90.
Thank you. I have you listed under that. Not sure of this next name. Sarah Sonia, 4905 Guadalupe Trail.
My comments are also under 90.
You. Megan Ling.
It's long and also 90.
I believe we have you registered for that as well. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Trustees, that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Danielle. Moving on to item 7 on the agenda. The Village of Los Ranchos was presented the Local Government Division Director's Award as
Mayor-
Mr. Donlin indicated.
Apologies, Mayor Pro Tem, we're at item 6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Approval of the minutes.
Okay. Moving ahead. Okay, so number 6, we take a look at approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the last meeting as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Call the question. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Ranovich?
I have a question in the minutes. On page 11, it shows we talked about the procedure to consider and act on letters of interest. It says we voted yes 4 times. But I'm remembering that there was still questions about the approach. And so I don't know if this is quite accurate the way we.
Mayor Pro Tem Trustee Ranovich, if you refer to page 12, the top, under moved, Trustee Benavides, he deferred the process to December, and
Oh,
the
thank
yes
you.
votes are for the deferral.
Thank you, Danielle. Then I'll say yes.
Okay. So Trustee Ranovich, approve the minutes?
Yes.
Second? Yes, I approve it as well. Okay. Now we can move on to 7. Run ahead of myself. Okay, so the first presentation again. Mr. Avalo, do you want to bring us a date on what occurred?
Mayor Pro Tem, Board of Trustees, I'm going to have our treasurer, Mr. Will Fisher, make the presentation as a colleague of our folks and knowing his business around finance.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, trustees. As I think Tom pointed out earlier, we work with exceptional people on the staff, and 2 of which were noted as Danielle and Tammy. That's recognized at the state level, which is very commendable. They recognize the hard work you've done and the incredible changes that the village has, faced this year. It's been almost insurmountable, but you all have done a phenomenal job. And it's recognized at the state, and I recognize it because I've had the benefit of working with you both. You both are every bit of what they say you are. You're professional, you're intelligent, you're very helpful, you're kind and considerate. It's a pleasure to work with you. So again, I'm honored to be part of your team. Thank you.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Tammy and myself, we were very appreciative of the award and to be presented the award in front of so many of our colleagues from municipalities across the state. So we're very appreciative of that and being recognized in that venue. So thank you. Treasurer Fisher.
Okay. Thank you both for your service. So the second presentation is from APS Administration, Mr. Antonio Gonzalez and Mr. Gabe Yakas. You'll have 10 minutes for the presentation. Thank you,
sir. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the Board of Trustee and staff. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Gabriel Hawkes, and I am the Deputy Superintendent for Operations for Albuquerque Public Schools. With me, I have Dr. Antonio Gonzalez, Deputy Superintendent for Leadership and Learning, also a colleague, Mr. Kazito Wajenji, with our Executive Director of Capital Master Planning is with us as well. And so as we begin our presentation, next slide, please, we're going to talk about right sizing. So goals of right sizing, really the big goal is to ensure that the district remains academically and financially viable, while also ensuring that equity and access are maintained for all of our families. We also look at recruiting and retaining students, adapting to current and future educational priorities, address overcrowding of students, and create options for families. Next slide, please. So establishment of District Right Sizing Committee, 2013. So due to a national trend in declining enrollment in the United States, and of course, impacting Albuquerque Public Schools, due to population migration, suburban growth, rising housing costs, school choice, and decreased birth rates, we've seen a decline in our enrollment. In 2012-13, we were right around 89,000 students. And last year, 23-24, we were at 69,000 students. So we've had that shift that we've seen. And part of that too is just the trend on decreased birth rates as we looked at not only in our community, but also nationally.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the Board of Trustees. My name is Antonio Gonzalez. As has been referenced, I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Leadership and Learning on the academic side of the school district. It's my pleasure to be with you this evening. In addition to the operational components that are taken into consideration for work like right sizing in a urban, suburban, rural school district like Albuquerque Public Schools, we also take into consideration academics and the teaching and learning environment for our students. One of the things that we take into consideration is reduced operational costs. Running smaller schools can be more expensive, as well as not as comprehensive in the approach towards servicing students. For example, in smaller schools, it is not at all uncommon that based on the SEG or state allocation we receive from the state of New Mexico to run our schools, we have only so much in the bank to pay for services to students. So that oftentimes cuts into half-time assistant principals, half-time counselors, half-time social workers, half-time wraparound services, lower number of elective classes, and a higher number of contents in which a single teacher is teaching. For example, you have one teacher that may be teaching math and science to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, whereas larger schools, you have one teacher teaching math and planning in that content area specifically. We also take into consideration a broader portfolio of options, a robust curriculum, to ensure that we are offering and doing the best that we can by our students on a daily basis. Next slide, please. We also recognize that opportunities for students is something to take into consideration. When we have a lower amount of adults on a campus, we have a smaller amount of opportunities on the club organization side, as well as the extracurricular activity side. So we really want to make sure that we are offering a robust opportunity for students with the numbers to make these teams, make these clubs flourish and thrive. Professional development is something that is critical. Professionals on our campus working to collaborate with one another and to be able to have the people, the colleagues, the number of colleagues on the campus to be able to engage in their professional practice. Smaller schools have smaller number of people and teachers, so they don't have the same opportunity to collaborate and cross-pollinate best practice in their professional portfolio. Next slide, please. Long-term sustainability is very important as we're working to ensure that our schools are equipped. We recognize that there's been several lessons learned as we've been engaging in this very difficult work, and we want to acknowledge that the work of right-sizing is difficult work. And as we've had to close or repurpose some schools over the last several years, we've learned that the lead time is very important, and the timing with our communities to be able to register for classes, to be able to interact with the choice options that their children have is really important as we think about a quality education for our students.
Next slide, please. So it's a very complex process that involves several experts in their areas, and it's a data-driven process when we identify schools. There's several variables, as I said, so a couple of examples: financial, operational, financial capital investments that have been made in schools, enrollment, capacity, transfers, zoning, equity, socioeconomics, academic outcomes, and proficiency. So those are a few. Next slide, please. Here's a list of, next slide, please. Thank you, sir. Here's some factors that get scored as we go through that complex process. Again, very data-driven, looking at several different components within our school district, but of each of those schools that we have as well. Next slide, please. So these are the tier 2 schools that have been identified through the process of right-sizing at Albuquerque Public Schools. And as we work through these, it's really looking at those, but then also thinking about the future, looking at areas. If we look at the next slide, the big pieces after we identify these schools, it's what do we do? So we definitely don't want to close buildings and have shuttered school buildings within our neighborhoods. We know that that's not something that's good. That's not something that's viable and positive for our community. So we try to balance our closures with identifying needs to repurpose or find other venues to keep those buildings thriving. And again, I mentioned it earlier, but data-driven decisions and the community survey that Albuquerque Public Schools does is one of the ways that we gather input with that. Next slide, please. So recent school consolidations. In 2017, Acoma Elementary School was moved to Oñate, or consolidated with Oñate Elementary School. In 2023, La Luz Elementary to MacArthur Elementary School. And then in 2024, Duranes to Reginald Chavez and Cochiti Elementary Schools. Next slide, please.
In the spring of 2024, a community survey entitled Voice of the Community was sent out to all Albuquerque Public School parents throughout the city. And we received several thousand responses back. This is done to get a gauge on what are the hopes and dreams, the desires of our community in helping the district make decisions as we look at complex issues like right-sizing. We strive to capture our parents' voice to guide the district in becoming more competitive and more in touch with what it is they are asking us in regards to their children and their education. It serves as a measurement tool for the district at the district level to ensure that our educational service and response to our communities is there. And finally, it helps our right size committee with a concurrent tool to be able to have in front of us as we're working toward these data-driven decisions. Next slide, please. Through that survey, it's important to point out that specifically the highest response to this survey throughout the city was in the zip code 87114 with 13 respondents, 13% of the respondents coming from this local area. We also need to recognize that the highest percentage of response in that zip code came from our elementary school age students' parents. When we asked and looked deeper into the data, we found that the highest interest of the parents in this zip code, based on this Voice of the Community survey, was in the area of STEM education. Really looking at that to be an area that they wanted the school district to respond to in service to their children. We have taken that into account and have invested the Engineering the Future National Magnet Grant that has invested $8 million into the North Valley of Albuquerque in Mission Elementary, Garfield Middle School, and Valley High School in response to this specifically. Next slide, please.
Is there a photo that didn't come out with that? So in looking at our current proposal that's on the table that will be taken to the Board of Education tomorrow for a vote, we had I apologize because there should have been a photo here of an aerial of Taft Middle School. So a couple of things I want to talk a little bit about. So I want to talk about a phased in approach. So one of the things is as we transition, if approved, as we transition into our plan of moving Coronado here, it won't be an entire K-8 school as we get started. So we're anticipating right around 360 students that will begin with that. When we look at the aerial, so on the south side of Taft Middle School, in August of 2004, we opened an additional parent drop-off. So really looking at ways to keep traffic on our property and keep traffic flowing. There'll be several discussions that will continue if this is approved. I believe we have a scheduled meeting. Our team has a scheduled meeting with the City of Los Ranchos January 7th at 11 in the morning to continue those discussions, to look at that and look at traffic flow, look at our approach there as we move forward with that. One thing I also want to mention too is start times. So the proposed Coronado school would start school at 8:30, and their school time end time would be 3:30. Taylor Middle School would be 8:05, ending at 3:05. And just looking at Alvarado, which is just kind of down the street, their start time is 7:30 and ending at 2:15. So there's some staggered times within our different schools within the community, which we will bring those to the discussion as well as when we're talking about traffic flow with that. So next slide, please.
So in addition to the Voice of the Community survey, taking the input from the community, including the recent input from the community in regards to this plan and making adjustments in response, has been something that I like to highlight on this slide. One is a continuum of services around the dual language model. So with the proposal of Coronado Elementary School coming as a gradual K-8 implementation school to Taft Middle School, there will be a priority transfer for any student attending a North Valley Elementary School that would like to continue dual language education at the middle school level, continuum of service in their community. Secondly, and that will be at Taft Middle School. Secondly, there will be a continued investment based on the Voice of the Community survey of STEM education at Garfield Middle School. So that continued investment on top of the base operational investment of middle school education in the North Valley will take place to ensure and infuse STEM education beyond the expiration of the National Magnet Grant that we have for the North Valley. And finally, the traditional model of middle school education, a comprehensive and robust portfolio of options for our students in regards to academics, wraparound services, full-time staff, athletics, and activities will be offered to students at Taylor Middle School. So 3 diverse, different, comprehensive options for students to continue their middle school education in their community.
Next slide, please. And before I summarize, I also want to mention that as if this proposal is approved by the Board of Education, as we have these discussions as far as traffic and transportation, that we're absolutely, we want to come to the table to be creative, to be problem solvers, Transportation, bus transportation could possibly be an option. That could be something that we could talk about as well. So we're open to all options as we move forward. But in summary, right sizing, it's good educationally and financially, both for the short and long term. We're reacting to a fast-changing community in the North Valley by offering more educational options, not fewer. Despite missteps and natural emotions that go with these issues, the district has operated in good faith with the North Valley community and plans to continue to reach out and partner and collaborate as we move forward. And then a Holodomor TAF is, it's not a great option to have here. Back to the idea of having empty school buildings. So with that, thank you for the invitation to present tonight, and thank you for having us here.
Thank you, thank you. At this time, though, I'd like to open questions from members of the Board of Trustees. So, Trustee Benavides.
Thank you for coming here today so that we can ask you questions. Engineers have an expression called, when they look at a problem, if it's over-constrained, that means there's not a solution, right? And I see your problem as being over-constrained. I see the figures you put up of declining enrollment for APS at large. And it feels like it's somewhat of a shell game. If you move people from one school to another, you're decreasing enrollment someplace else. So right sizing, to me, I think this fits your definition, is you have a facility that's properly sized for the students that will be attending that school. So there are two solutions to that. One is to increase the number of students if the facility is already there, or to decrease the size of the facility. And I don't know if APS has ever done that, but I think it's a discussion worth having. And that's certainly not something that's easy to talk about. And I think the residents have a valid concern in regards to traffic. This village has changed over the years, over the decades. We have a traffic problem now already that we're struggling with, and I think the residents have a valid concern about that. I don't know if you want to comment on anything I said about the right sizing and the two options, and are you just doing a shell game?
Thank you for those comments, Trustee. And absolutely, I mean, it is a challenge. And as you look at the size of our community, right? We're over 1,200 square miles. I believe we're bigger than Rhode Island. And so there's a lot of challenges that do come with that, and urban migration within our district. Thank you for the comment. Absolutely take that into consideration. All those different factors that we look at with our teams that go through and sort that. Those are part of those discussions. Very valid. Thank you, sir.
Trustee Kiefer.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I've just got a few questions. So how long has APS been considering this plan, and more specifically to the schools in the Los Ranchos area, Taft?
I'm going to ask my colleague, Kazito Wajenji from Capital Master Plan to address that.
Thank you very much. My name is Kizito Wijenje. I'm the Executive Director of the Capital Master Plan for Albuquerque Public Schools. The whole right-sizing initiative started in 2013. We run the schools through the variable matrix every year. And since we started running that matrix in 2016, the schools that you saw there, 3 of them being in the North Valley, increasingly came to the top in terms of viability. The schools that come to the top, there's a viability issue depending on the age of the physical plant, what needs to be invested, what kind of enrollment versus capacity issue they are, and what we're seeing in the older parts of town, especially in the North Valley, you're finding that the capacity of the school is in many cases 50% or less being utilized. Once you have a facility that is 50% below utilization, then economies of scale start to come in. And that's what Dr. Gonzalez starts to talk about, the qualitative offerings on the education also start to come down. So for the sake of equity and for the sake of the kids in the North Valley, something needs to be done.
Thank you for that, but I guess I want a little more specific on when was this school identified? When was Taft identified to right size?
So like I told you, about 2016, we came up with about 6 schools. And since then, we have right-sized 3. And obviously, right-sizing is an issue that you have to be deliberative about. There's a lot of moving parts, there's finances, there's impact to the community. And basically, the first one we did was Oñate, which is now being occupied by a charter school, the Public Academy for Performing Arts. Then we did La Luz, which is on 4th Street, and that one is also being occupied by a charter school for the seeing disabled. And they're deaf. Sorry. Deaf and
Excuse me, ma'am, let's please, excuse me. Let's please respect the process. Let's give them an opportunity.
We'll respect the community.
Excuse me. Let's give them an opportunity to present.
Sorry, I misspoke. And so you have, then you had Duranis, again, a school that was designed for 400 kids. Elementary schools are designed for about 350, 400 kids. And as of last year, 2 years ago, had less than 100 kids. And so that was right-sized last year. And now we get to the middle schools, which is Taft. Okay. And so we will keep on going. There are other schools in other areas, as you saw in the list.
So I appreciate the response, and I appreciate you mentioning the impact to the community in which the school resides. So when was the village staff, mayor, notified of this and brought into the process? Because it seems like I've been here just a year. Feels like forever, but just a year. And it's only been in the last couple months that, I mean, there was kind of some rumblings a little bit about it, but the last couple months, and here we are with a board meeting that has such an important topic, as we heard from public comment, that there's a lot of people that want to talk. So I'm hoping you 3 stay around for the public comment and that agenda item to hear what the community really has to say. I strongly encourage you to do that. But to talk about something that potentially could be passed tomorrow. I mean, this is just not partnering with the community. And the answer that I'm getting is, well, this has been since 2016. Well, then we should have been brought back in the process in 2016, 2017, 18, so on, so that we're here, the community feels like they're part of the solution, part of what's going on, and this is not being done to them. I mean, this is just ludicrous, in my opinion.
So just to add on to that, as you know, these plans are complex. They impact communities. You don't want to give wrong signals. There's many other communities that may be impacted or not in the future. However this may help is an ex-mayor of yours who was also a great supporter of us, Joe Craig, actually sat on what was called Yes for Our Children's Future, which is the public-private community that helps pass our bond elections for our capital. And he was aware of the trend of what was going on over here, but it wasn't the time with which to start bringing out plans to the community which are happenstance and half-baked.
So
But
when was the time?
So the last two mayors have been consulted on an informal basis and not formal basis. But this is the time that this is going to go on.
The night before?
As you know, this is an issue that was passing on in the last 3 months. The Board of Education is a quasi-judicial entity that, just like you, has to pass issues. And so they've been given all the issues. And as the traffic issue in Los Ranchos is not unique, is not maybe exacerbated by this issue, but it's been a long-term issue, as Mayor Rainbow has brought about. And so there's things that the Department of Transportation does that exacerbates your community. There are things that the city of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County does that exacerbates the traffic in this community. And I'm sure when DOT came about with what they're doing on I-25, when the city came about with narrowing Rio Grande, I'm sure that those are exactly the same issues. And you have the same issues with housing and other infrastructure issues that you do in this community. So this is not different. The school has been there for about 60 years. At one point, had 700 kids. It has gone down in population because the demographics has changed. And we are trying to keep up with that change in issues and change in what's going on.
I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. I'm just saying the timing is just not fair.
And trustee, from the academic side, in terms of communication with the school, the conversation with Taft Middle School specifically goes back about a couple of years in regards to the right sizing plan, conversations, correspondence. So it has been a conversation in terms of within the community over time. The tough part about conversations like these is it's a public process, and when it gets closer to the dais and a decision, notifications are made. Chicken or egg, which one comes first in terms of, do we start notifying the community in terms of next step plans for their children at schools before the vote, after the vote? The complexities of the problem become very dynamic and take on a life of their own in regards to the right sizing process. But I do just simply want to answer your question by saying that conversations with the village of Los Ranchos go back to the last two previous mayors and through the school at La Luz, at MacArthur, at Duranes, and at Taft, going back a couple of years along this topic.
Thank you for at least a direct response. I appreciate that. Let me ask. So I know it was partially mentioned, except for maybe the Duranes consolidation. What happened with the school that consolidated into Duranes or away from Duranes? Because I know one turned into the performing arts, another turned into the school for the deaf and visually handicapped.
It's a sign language academy.
Sign Language Academy.
Thank you.
And so what happened to the third and those buildings that were either abandoned, or what happened to them?
Madam Trustee, the Duranes site specifically has not closed. It's been repurposed to an early childhood site to work as a magnet for area pre-K students to beyond the Duranes attendance zone specifically, but really throughout the North Valley, to offer an early childhood option for their children in regards to that head start, if you will, to their education. We know that that has been a priority in the state for the last couple of years. So the district used this site as opposed to closing Duranis, but really to repurpose it so that we could work to pilot early childhood sites within the district to attract and offer to parents an option for early childhood education.
Thank you. And I guess to kind of piggyback on my colleague, trustee Benavides's comment, is it almost seems like it's just a shell game of moving people, right? The birth rate's gone down, but we still have the same amount of buildings, same amount of infrastructure. I mean, has APS ever looked at, I mean, a lot of these schools are in prime area. Why not partner with the community and donate that land back to the community, or do some type of community APS that it doesn't have to be a school? But I mean, Taft is in a great residential area. Why don't you just let the village do something with it instead of trying to, fit a round peg into a square hole sometimes? That's all I have.
Trustee Ranovich.
I have a couple questions. I'd heard that your plans for Taft included being a non-boundary school. So in fact, it will be bringing in students from around the district. Is that correct? So Taft, in terms of transportation, Taft is a school that's harder to get to than a lot of schools in the Albuquerque metro. Why would you choose a school? What made Taft attractive to you in terms of having it be a non-boundary school in a place that's hard to get at, as opposed, because there's students coming from all around the city and will have to drive to this place, as opposed to a school that's more accessible in terms of freeways, larger roads, more traveled roads, et cetera?
So speaking to you just kind of from the facilities perspective, right? So if you look at the list of schools and the size need in developing into a K-8 school, the size of the facility was very attractive to us as far as space already, as far as the capability to, with field and some of those other things. So from the space perspective, very attractive for a K-8. And I'll ask my colleague, Dr. Gonzalez, to talk about the academics.
And Mr. Trustee, one of the things that was taken into consideration in regards to your point about the non-boundary magnet was when you're looking at this school, which is a magnet school within the district portfolio of options, and that's something that the district does take seriously, is to provide options to parents in a competitive educational space in which we find ourselves. And we have a waiting list at this school. When we looked at the demographics of where they attend, many come from the North Valley. Some come from the Northeast Heights, others come from the South Valley. Point being, they don't come from one specific area, so that we could say that the center of the city is centralized.
But don't they also come from the Northeast Heights and the West Mesa, and they come from everywhere?
Correct.
You guys have been building a lot of schools in the past few years, a lot, 10 years or so. And why isn't one of those as attractive? I just don't understand why this one particularly would be more attractive. Is it simply the square footage? That's it?
Well, I think part of the answer would be the viability of the current site in regards to the number of students within the North Valley area and a 3-mile radius. We have 3 middle schools, Garfield, Taylor, and Taft, all with approximately 250 to 275 students. When we look at a comprehensive middle school setting to offer the robust offerings of education that I mentioned earlier within the presentation, you're looking at a sweet spot of approximately 500 students, so that you can have full-time staff, full-time wraparound services, and full-time extracurricular and activities for our students. So we have a small number of students within our North Valley community that are making up 3 middle schools when in theory, the enrollment's not there.
Right, and that's because we have a less dense population of people in the North Valley. So you're bringing even more density in terms of traffic, and I think that's an issue. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is purely and I'll let you respond, but the other thing I wanted to mention, and this is purely a suggestion to you in the future, and I agree with my fellow trustees, and I'm sure the mayor will have something, Mayor Pro Tem will have something to say too. Why don't you survey the neighborhoods that you're putting these facilities in? You survey everybody that's got kids, but you're ignoring the neighborhoods that these schools exist in, it seems to me. And why wouldn't you be doing that? Why wouldn't you be asking neighbors, physical neighbors? We have a rule in Los Ranchos that if something is going on and it's true in Albuquerque too, that if something is going on in the neighborhood, we or the consultant apprises the neighbors within a certain distance of what's going on. But you guys didn't do that. You did through our mayor in a formal and informal way. Unfortunately, that didn't get to us at this point in time. And to be honest, Trustee Benavides and I have been here for 3 years. And so we've seen a little bit of that, but it's really not, not been discussed with us in any real way. So I find that disturbing.
Mr. Trustee, two reactions. One would be that, as has been alluded to earlier, we do have set up meetings moving forward. So pending the Board of Education and their vote tomorrow, we do have what I would characterize as implementation conversations. So from an academic point of view, as well as an operational point of view, really looking to get this right as good neighbors with one another to ensure that next year, should this be approved, we will not have the full implementation of this K-8 school. Therefore, the enrollment next year would not be that much larger than it currently is. Point being, there is time for us to think outside the box and innovatively. I'm going to get myself in trouble talking about the operational side, but perhaps we could look at innovative ways of transportation and just different ways to hear the community concern in regards to traffic. Now, I would echo and concur that it has been unfortunate that we've had the change in leadership at the village as well as in the district as we've rolled out these plans, but the conversations have been taking place.
Yes, but the conversation with the past mayor, Craig, took place before he became mayor, right? He became mayor in January of this year. Those conversations occurred when he was not mayor. So you really haven't talked to our current mayor, or did you?
Yes,
Him,
we did. Before he was mayor and during the time he was mayor. Sure.
So during that 4 months, you were talking to him about it?
Yeah, in fact, we'd meet him probably once a month informally because we had a relationship.
Wow, he never brought that to us, so that's okay. Speaking of your innovation in terms of transportation, does APS have school buses that are smaller so that you could actually field kids from districts, from regions, from vicinities that then all could be transported down as opposed to each parent driving their child to the school?
Great question, Mr. Trustee. So we do, and we have what we've utilized what we call super stops in the past, which is basically
You've utilized what?
Super stops.
Super stops.
So it's basically, looking at an area and having a bus stop where students, would be a drop-off spot. that these buses could pick up those students and then bring them here. So that's something that absolutely willing to have, getting creative with those discussions and possibly limiting individual car traffic.
So if this passes tomorrow, how often can you meet with our leadership?
Right away and as often as need be.
Okay, good. So you have built a lot of schools in the past 10 years, say. I've been a part of some of those projects. Do you set aside monies for transportation improvements for schools that you're not redeveloping or building from scratch?
So
let me rephrase it.
Okay.
So you set aside monies when you're building or rebuilding schools, and those monies are put into the school building itself, to the parking lots, to the bus drop-offs, to some degree, often streets around the school. When you're simply reutilizing another school, like Taft, how much money, or do you put money into transportation improvements beyond those innovations that we just talked about? Do you have money set aside for Taft, as an example, to make for better access or create schedules that will offset peak hours for transportation coming to the school, so that it offsets some of the, I don't want to call it damage, but some of the problems associated with the higher level of use and number of students?
So transportation is kind of a separate, it's funded separately through the state. So, and it's based on number of riders every year. And we kind of look at that. We do have some flexibility within our own budget. It's what we call an enterprise system. So we try to keep it self-sufficient. So what the state provides for us, then of course, in order for us to purchase buses, we have to, we work through the state, and then those are through I'll call it a lease purchase on a 13-year cycle. But we do have flexibility within our own transportation department to look at times, to look at some of these innovations, and to look at some problem-solving solutions. And we work directly with the state. If we have ideas, we'll go back to them and talk about it. And some of these may not be extra. They just may be utilizing some of our transportation in a different way.
So would this be the state DOT?
This is the Public Education Department, Transportation Division.
And do they have monies set aside for transportation improvements?
We're allocated on a state allocation every year. So it's kind of like the general SEG that we get funded for. Based on the number of riders every year, we submit that to the state, and then they'll send us that transportation. We'll negotiate buses and kind of work through that. So it's not necessarily specific to that set aside.
So one other question about that, and I'm sorry I'm taking so much time.
Let me address one of your other issues. Apart from what Mr. Hawkins has mentioned, is we do have a pot of money from local capital and bonds. It's called bus loading and unloading zones. It's called the Blues Team. We set aside probably $3 or $4 million district-wide from every mill levy and every bond. And we bring in APD, we bring in sheriffs, we bring in traffic, and we bring in, like your village, the meeting we'll have on the 7th is part of this committee. And with some of those monies, we can do some limited changes from an infrastructure side in terms of traffic, in terms of loading and unloading, like what you're talking about, within our school grounds. We don't have right of way, as you know, but we can do things like you're talking about infrastructure-wise within Taft. And one of the things that we've done, like at Jefferson Middle School, the loading zone and the queue-up zone is we bring it off the street, bring it onto our property so that you don't have backup traffic. We've got examples of those, and those are the things we'll be discussing.
Good. Can you hire a transportation planner to conduct a study? A transportation plan, a transportation study?
So a transportation study can get pretty comprehensive in terms of
Yes.
where it backs up to. So these are some of the issues that we shall be discussing with the village and look at the options of what we can do and whether we need to go to things at that level.
And Kizito, you would be willing to conduct transportation studies for Taft, as an example? And for Taylor, as an example?
Definitely Taylor, because Taylor will have more kids.
Right.
So those are the things we are going to be looking at with this Blues team
So-
in terms of working with both you.
So the student population size, sorry to interrupt you, is important to whether or not you can conduct a transportation study.
It is. And what will be generated in terms of traffic.
Well, I would ask that you keep in, if this passes, we really need you to be there for us and be a part of the community in terms of these changes that you're requesting. Because as you can see, our meeting is full, and a lot of the people in this audience are worried.
Absolutely. You have our word.
I think that's all I have for now, Mayor Pro Tem.
So let me just wrap it up. I mean, my fellow trustees have taken on, have covered a number of the issues that I've had. But certainly we got involved with this, I guess, starting in July of this year. And we were prompted by it, to get involved by some parents, okay? So we did not have, as village officials, any kind of message from APS that essentially concurred that this was going to happen. That's a major issue. We had and again, meeting with APS leadership. I mean, they've been very forthcoming in admitting that the communication was not as solid as it should have been. My fellow trustee Radnovich brought up the need to survey the community. The APS survey was for parents, and that's certainly important. But the other part of it, though, is to understand the community's perspective. And something that had been talked about at a previous meeting that I attended was to start the process early on where parents get involved, to get to the point of developing a plan on how to proceed without parent input from the beginning, who are going to be impacted, and the parents as well as the community, going to be impacted by that decision. It's probably, in my mind, kind of a lapse of communication that should have occurred much early on. If we started in 16, I think as Trustee Kiefer had talked about, parents should have been involved in that, so they were available to understand what was going to be happening. I guess the other comment is that you talked about the influx of students to Taft. The influx of students to Taylor are going to be those students who are currently, if they choose to, Taft, currently would be going to Taylor, okay? So that's going to increase the size of Taylor dramatically. With the building plan that is put aside for Taylor, which is, I believe, about $28 million at this point, how is the existing campus going to be able to serve the additional students coming in?
So right now, Taylor has barely 300 kids. So does Taft. And so the improvements that will be done to Taylor that you alluded to for several $1 million not only to upgrade a building that is several decades old, but will now be able to take care of students from both schools. Because if you recall, just a decade ago, Taylor had over 1,200 kids. So Taylor, and that was with portables. But Taylor, as it is right now, can handle 600 plus kids, but in an old building. We figured if we are going to disrupt students and families, they may as well have the latest and the greatest and good schools. And we also have a couple of hundred kids from the west side. And this is Mr. Radnovich, you talked about, yes, we did build 12 schools over 10 years between 2000 and 2012. They were mostly on the west side. And the west side still has a lot of people, and it's still growing. And so you have elementary schools on the west side that have more students than Taft, Taylor, and Garfield combined. So that's not a problem over there. But it's gone down. So kids who are still coming to Taylor from the west side will now stay on the west side. And so that will reduce the number a little bit, and it'll be Taft and Taylor combined.
Casito, if I could.
Yes.
But those schools are in locations on 4- and 6-lane roads. Taylor is an old cattle trail. It's a 2-lane road. So it's a really different situation. And that's the only access to it.
It is. But like I said, remember, Taylor had 1,200 kids.
I get it.
Yeah, at 1,200. And we're not taking it back to 1,200 kids. We're taking to about 500, 600 kids. And it will be viable. And again, as Mr. Hawk has said, we shall work with you. We shall work with that community in terms on an ongoing basis, because some of this is trial and error. You know, there's things that you might have solutions for, and you need to fix as you go along. That's what the Blues team is all about. That's why we have a line item for bus loading and unloading.
So a question I would have, though, is I know that there are schools in the Heights that are already overcrowded. Okay. So why, if they're overcrowded, then why wouldn't some of those students be able to, again, fill out the schools in the North Valley? If, in fact, you're looking at situations where you've got 1,000 students in a school that was built for 600, and I'm reminded in talking to some parents that I know in the Heights about a couple of the schools where their kids were in classrooms that were 30, 40 students in the classroom. So again, the boundary issue, it seems to me, might have been adjusted in order to pull in students that are closer to the Valley area, as opposed to bringing in the students from Coronado. And again, Coronado certainly deserves, the best education that they can have. Certainly, I'm not going to argue with that. But then the question is, are there options that may be better available, that may be better for Coronado in order to keep their students and attract other students? That I don't know, but I'm kind of expressing some of the concerns that I've had from parents. Were there any further questions from the board?
No, I have no.
Okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, Big Jim Farms. Chantel and Roxanne Wagner.
Aren't we hearing from the audience? No?
Oh, no.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and board members.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about Big Jim Farms' collaboration with the Los Ranchos Agri-Nature Center. So I am Roxanne Wagner, and I'm here together with Chantel representing Big Jim Farms. So for those of you that don't know, Big Jim Farms was founded right here in the village of Los Ranchos in 2017 by 3 members of the Wagner family. Jimmy, he's locally known as Big Jim, myself, and my daughter, Chantel. So we're proud to be part of a larger family legacy that has been farming in the Middle Rio Grande Valley for over a century. So we brought with us generations of experience, a deep respect for the land, and a commitment to sustainable agriculture. And our mission was simple and purposeful. It's to grow food using organic practices and to provide opportunities to the community to experience life on the farm firsthand. So from the beginning, we felt that our goals aligned closely with the agricultural values of the village, and we were received with open arms. So soon after rolling up our sleeves, both residents and visitors to the village were greeted by vibrant fields of fruits and vegetables, replacing empty grass right where you go over Montano. And what began as a green chili U-pick soon grew into a thriving roadside farm stand, providing fresh local produce to the community. And in time, we did expand to offer hands-on educational experiences for children and adults, including farm tours and seasonal interactive programs. And throughout this time, our farm has worked alongside village leadership and fostered positive relationships with organizations such as AgriFutures and Explora, collaborating to strengthen and sustain the future of farming in Los Ranchos. We've also been proud to participate and support community events, including the local bike tours, the annual Matanza, and the Lavender and Harvest Festivals, which celebrate the rich agricultural and cultural heritage of the village. So over the years, as our farm has grown and evolved, our physical location has changed, but our dedication to the village of Los Ranchos has remained steadfast. And while our village is no longer located within the village limits, while our farm is no longer located within the village limits, we remain deeply connected to the village of Los Ranchos in both spirit and practice. In fact, we're practically next door neighbors. Our current location is right beyond Griegos. So our ties to the community continue to grow stronger. So we have maintained our village business license, and we remain active participants in local events and collaborations that celebrate and sustain the agricultural heritage we all value. Additionally, we are grateful to be able to utilize the Los Ranchos Agri-Nature Center for some of our programming, allowing us to continue offering educational opportunities and farm experiences that benefit the entire community. And Chantel is going to take over now and talk to you about some of those programs that took place this past year at the Agri-Nature Center.
Hi, good evening. Next slide, please. So we farmed about 3/4 of an acre, so less than 1 acre this year at the Agri-Nature Center. I'm going to talk about what we grew, how we grew it, and why we grew it, why we partnered with Agri-Nature Center. Next slide, please. So despite the small area, we actually were really successful and had a huge variety of crops. As you can see, we had 13 varieties of peppers, not just green chili. We had bell peppers, serranos, habaneros, banana, cayenne, Thai, yellow hots, poblanos, cubanelle, jalapenos, shishitos, and sweet bell peppers. So lots to choose from. Next slide, please. I had a great time making the slideshow. It made me not want to be in the winter. I want to bypass and go back to the farm because it's just like the best place for me. But anyways, we grow tomatoes. We have 2 varieties growing there. Next slide, please. We had a variety of herbs, basil, dill, cilantro. That's our 5th generation farmer right here. Next slide. Cantaloupes, next slide. We had corn and beans, like a 3 Sisters. We grew blue corn, next slide. Flowers, we had a variety from zinnias to marigolds, sunflowers, gladiolus, next slide. Of course, green chili. We also had eggplants and cucumbers. We grew these crops specifically for our workshops, classes, and field trips that we held at the Agri-Nature Center. Any surplus not used for the education was sold at farmers markets, where we were able to offer people double up food bucks. It's a program to provide low-income families with the opportunity to get 2 for the price of 1. And we also donated a lot of the produce that we grew at the Agri-Nature Center to families in need, actually hundreds of families. Next slide, please. And that's just all of our crops. The next slide. So it was, like I said, a 3/4 of an acre. And we were very successful with very few issues. The land had not been farmed in years. It was very dry. We did some minimal tilling to prepare it. We hand planted seeds and organic transplants, and we installed drip irrigation due to the water constraints at the Agri-Nature Center. Our growing methods were organic and regenerative. We didn't use any chemicals for pesticides or fertilizers. We only applied fish emulsion twice. It's a natural fertilizer, but we just hand weeded the field 1 to 2 times a week. We believe a healthier plant attracts fewer pests, and we saw this year with an abundant harvest. Our efforts focused on the health of the land. The diverse crops that we grew naturally supported each other. They helped control pests. The result was healthy, nutrient-rich crops and soil. And we plan to continue this year in 2025 with a spring cover crop and proper crop rotation to continue taking care of the soil. As 5th generation farmers, we understand the need for sustainable practices. For farming to continue, it's essential to find creative ways to generate income, to cover costs like labor, seeds, equipment. We don't rely on any donations or borrowed resources, but we continually reinvest into our farm each year. Though we had a few volunteers, our operation is mostly supported by hired help throughout the season. We hired workers for tasks like land preparation, tractor work, planting, weeding, harvesting, field trips, teaching workshops, property cleanup, marketing, and administrative tasks. We covered all of those costs. We also paid workers' compensation, liability insurance, tools, seed, fertilizer, and the cost to the village to rent the space. We paid everything, and we ensured there was no financial burden placed on the Agri-Nature Center. We paid our staff between $16 to $25 an hour. We had 10 workers with 2,900 man hours. Our cost for labor was about $51,000. We also paid the village $7,500 for this season, and the village received 10% of our net sales with that $7,500. So we feel our project directly benefits the village financially because of this direct payment, but also because we incur all the other costs necessary to offer our educational and agriculture programming, which otherwise would be a burden for the village. The village would need to hire, train, manage staff, plus incur all of these costs that we took on. Why we did it, our mission at Big Jim Farms is to showcase agriculture, help participants connect to the land, and teach New Mexico traditions. Next slide, please. So we offered workshops. Like I said, everything we grew at the site was used for a workshop. Participants get to see seed, to harvest, to food. And the most important reason why we do this is for community. We create a space where people from different backgrounds come together and learn and make lasting memories. We're all about community, connection, and tradition. Next slide. So I just have a few pictures of our workshops. So we had a salsa and chips making workshop where they could go out and pick everything they needed to make salsa from scratch. and the chips using blue corn from our fields, and we ground it down into flour to make the chips. So it was really a lot of fun, a lot of learning, and all ages got to participate from the very young to older. We did, next slide, flower arranging and our tamale making with the chili that we grew. They got to pick it. And this is our tamale making class. So every class and workshop is directly tied to the season. So we would have stuff starting earlier in the season, like the salsa, to working into the fall. We did Dia de los Muertos crowns with the flowers. We hope for next year to do canning classes, cooking classes, and other things that may be tied back to our mission of promoting traditions of New Mexico in agriculture. Next slide. We also offered field trips to students. She's going to talk just briefly about it, and then we'll close.
Okay, so as we were working over the summer in the fields and our plants were coming to life, we noticed that the property was coming to life with school kids that were there for summer vacation programs that were being hosted by other entities. And just as those were ending is when there was some staff turnover and things, but we were able to ensure that school kids were still be able to come out and learn about agriculture as we started our fall programs. So what we do with our field trips for the kids, we try to give them a full circle understanding from seed to mouth, you know, understanding of food production. And we do this by touring them around the farm through 5 different learning stations. And we cover things like soil and insects and animals, seeds, and watering. And we got a lot of kids from a lot of school districts and zip codes throughout the area, not just APS, but beyond. I think we've got people that drove from about 100 miles out. And they were all very appreciative of what we had to offer. And we were thankful for the space because, you know, it was already set up with the different stations that were there. And so it made it real nice to be able to do the field trips. And as would be expected with having visitors over at the property, there were minor issues that would come up, but they were always responded with, you know, responded to quickly and with solutions to overcome those little issues.
Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so to close, our community impacts, we had over 1,400 students for field trips. That doesn't include the parents that came and teachers that came, that were able to come to this site that had never been there before, never even knew it existed. Additionally, we had 1,600 people participate in the workshops and classes at the Agri-Nature Center, coming from all over New Mexico and even out of state. Areas of growth. In 2024, the challenge that we met was just the transition between the staff at the Agri-Nature Center and establishing procedures in that transition of what was expected between either one. But as mentioned, we addressed them quickly, and we're confident as we're forming new relationships with the current staff that we'll have great communication and operations will run smoothly in 2025. And we look forward to this upcoming year and what we can do and collaborate on, and we're grateful to be there. And so we want to thank you, and we just wanted to come here today to kind of let you know about what we did and what we accomplished. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Trustee Benavides, do you have any kind of questions at all?
Yeah, I have a few things. What would it take to get You Pick 'em chili back into Los Ranchos?
I mean,
People loved it. It was
I know.
hugely successful.
yeah, we grew actually chili a small area. So there's lots of people asking for it. So it's something that we definitely want to bring in 2025. In the past few years, it wasn't because we didn't want to. There was just issues with like hail and water and things like that, where we weren't able to get a crop. But we feel like excited about it.
If there's something that needs to be done to get you to come back, please communicate that. So I've been promoting this idea of doing a chili festival here at the Agri-Nature Center. And what would be different about this, I would give it some name like Chili Festival from Lematar to Chimayo, right? Because what's missing is people don't explore all the different varieties that can be grown. And I know you guys grew different varieties. We get too many people talking about Hatch green chili, and Hatch is just a region, it's not a variety. And so it could be a lot of fun. I think it could be, we could get other small farmers in the village interested in growing chili here. I think the work you've done with the Agri-Nature Center has been one of the key components that I always felt where we lacked as an Agri-Nature Center, which is how do we get more people involved in small farming, right? How do we encourage that? Not just, so it grows outside of the Agri-Nature Center. I just don't want to see people doing it at the Agri-Nature only, right? And the workshops is very key. It's a step in that direction. The knowledge that you bring, if maybe you could trade volunteer work for hey, we'll teach you how to do this kind of stuff, right? I think that would be I think that would be interesting to a lot of people. So I think I appreciate you coming today and giving your presentation. That's all I have.
Thank you. I think like for farmers to be successful, not to be scared, for them to be able to make money and for that, and be able to figure out how to run and manage the business, I think would allow farmers outside. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot to the soil, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think I'd have the right knowledge. I grow chili, but sometimes it's good, sometimes they're kind of small, right? And it's all because of the soil, and I'm not properly caring for the soil, right? So I know you guys, the problems that I've seen, you've seen on a large scale, right? But the knowledge still transfers over to the small farmer, I think.
Thank you.
Trustee Kiefer?
Thank you for your time in coming to do this. I always saw, the big gym farms right there on the other side of Montano, and it would always make me chuckle because I moved to the village. I'm a North Valley resident and grew up here in the North Valley, but I moved to the village specifically for the farming, the open space, and I'm trying to get my little hands on properties in the areas and stuff to hopefully be able to do something one of these days on the small scale. So I love the teaching, the sharing of information. I mean, your family has a great reputation. I would always go to the farms in Corrales and buy my produce. So thank you for doing what you do. And I echo Trustee Benavides' sentiment. If we can get you guys to help the small community farmers expand, and you all expand if you want to take up more, maybe there's private partnership deals. And I do encourage you to look at Main Street. You guys are an employer, and we're just starting to kick off a Main Street program. And if our identity is agriculture, like we claim that it is, we need to figure out how do we encompass that into our identity and into our private-public business partnership through the Main Street program. So something to keep in mind. I'd love to maybe set up a meeting to meet with you all, or encourage at one of the next Main Street meetings to come to, so that those discussions, and I'm glad that Trustee Benavides brought up his chili idea, because I'm all on board of, let's figure out something that we can do that will be unique to the village, that we can keep here and really help from a revenue generating standpoint, but also from a community gathering event.
Thank you. Thank you for your support, and we would love to work with you all on those ideas.
Trustee Radovich.
I just wanted to thank you as well. I think you really add a lot to our part of the world, and I wish you were still in Los Ranchos too. I don't actually know the reason why you left, and I'm not going to ask you to tell us why, but I do wish you were still here. So thanks for participating, and thanks for making the village part of your home, and just thanks for doing what you do, especially with the kids and the community.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I would certainly echo the comments made by my fellow trustees. One of the things that we have done in the village with the help of the Ag Center is to do an ag program at Los Ranchos Elementary School, and I think that, Gil, I think that you were part of that at one point, weren't you?
I used to do hands-on science.
Oh, hands-on
but that
science,
was
okay.
like 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, I think. Yes.
Okay, but I hope that we can, and we're talking with the folks at the Ag Center about this, is to expand the agricultural programs to other schools within the valley. And certainly any help that you can provide us. It seems like you've got a setup already there that can begin the education, for our kids. And so I certainly applaud what you're doing and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you. We have done stuff like inside schools, like presentations, but maybe we can move forward with like more of a long-term education in the schools. So we'll keep moving towards that. So thank you for that idea.
Well, again, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. Let me suggest that we take a brief break here.
Sure.
Let's take 5 minutes, make it quick, we can come back. Thank you.
Only 5. Okay.
Mayor.
It'll take me 5 minutes to get to.
It's 7:40.
Good. Yeah. No, thank you for
Well, we should not discourage volunteers like yourself.
Oh, no, no, I'm.
So, I appreciate it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, it's not, where do you want to go? From what I understand, I can't. You guys do the trustees, and you guys. According to them, they said you guys have to approve a lot of so if you guys say, it's like, I can't take the step unless I get there.
Oh, you mean yeah.
Well, I don't know about that, I just know that before I want to try to work, I get you guys the same feel of life. Because we're, the committee looks at you but I think it's up to you guys
Oh, yeah.
It's like when I'm trying to do this guy out, let us know. But I hope, sorry, that would also encourage others to come up. I mean, I do, I really appreciate it. I have never.
Okay, it will. Because that's a part of this going to be voted on tomorrow. I put it in El Paso. I don't think that's out there. I'm really big community advocate for the North Valley, and I just think that when we have something sort of one-sided here today, it doesn't give people a lot of information. You know, how they're actually being processed. Can you at least acknowledge the irony that so many people here today are feeling that there's a disservice but they were after I was just informed, I don't know why I didn't receive this information. The exact same thing that's happening. There's a dialogue between APS and its students, parents, and the village and myself, but also part of this community. I understand. Many different communities. I'm on the North Valley Equity and Justice Coalition through the city of Albuquerque, so I understand. But I mean, there's a reason aspect as well. You need to understand that there was an error in getting information. I think there could be a different argument, but I just
Okay, we are back together again at 7:50. Okay. Let's move on then to item number 8 on the agenda, which is old business, discussion approval of a procedure to consider and act on for the letter of interest from Mr. Lawrence Real. Ms. Soto has since withdrawn, and it's deferred from the December 19th, 2024 meeting. My approach to this, I think, is very much based on the need that we have to have a mayor in place. I would recommend that we go ahead and vote on Mr. Real at the January BOT meeting, and that at a time to be discussed with Mr. Real, who it would be available soon after that. And in discussions that I've had with him, he suggests that he'd be available as early as February 1st. I know there have been concerns about the ongoing reviews that are happening with Palindrome, and I certainly understand that and totally respect that. However, we also have a number of other issues that are coming before us, as we've heard about tonight, dealing with traffic and with other types of concerns. We're going to hear some more about those tonight. So I believe that it would be important for us to do the vote in January, and then agree on a date for Mr. Real to be sworn in as, assuming the vote, to be acted on as mayor. So I'd like to give opportunity for other trustees to weigh in. Trustee Benavides?
Okay, so today, I think what you're saying, we're going to vote on the process.
Just the process, right?
And I heard two different points. One is when we as trustees vote to confirm somebody, right? And we know there's only one candidate, so we pretty much know who that is, but we have to still make a vote. And then, so I heard you say you'd like to do that in January, and then I heard you say that there needs to be an effective date when the person becomes mayor. So those are the two steps you'd like to vote on? Is that?
Well, the effective date, Mr. Real has said that he would be available as of February 1st, but it's up to the board to make the decision on when we would do that.
Yeah, so, and you talked about this, I didn't want to taint the new mayor with all our baggage, the Palindrome baggage. And, we could have already done the site development plans and plat review if we'd if we started doing that right away. So, here's a problem. You taint the new person with palindrome. You see the FU sign on Rio Grande Boulevard, and it's just, we're just doing that to somebody unnecessarily. And it's our baggage. I think we could take care of it. And if we just make sure we have all our ducks in order when we send it to P&Z, it would have been here by now. And I'm wanting to keep the pressure on the administration here to make sure we get that through. So I don't like the date of February. I don't care when we actually vote to confirm somebody, but in terms of the effective date, I think February is too soon.
Trustee Kiefer?
I completely disagree with Trustee Benavides for multiple reasons. One is well, let me say, we agree on 50%. We agree that in January, we need to move forward with a vote for mayor. As far as when Mr. Rael would begin, I mean, to me, that is dependent on him. I think there's a lot of things in the village, and I know I mentioned this last time, and Trustee Benavides disagreed with me that, he said that he didn't feel that there were issues being delayed by not having a mayor. I think we are doing a disservice to the community by not having an actual mayor. It's doing a disservice to staff. It's doing a disservice to the administrator. It's doing a disservice. We need someone for legislative session. I mean, it's a 60-day legislative session, and we're going to expect our administrator to go up there. Most legislators like to see the mayor up there. We've got the Vineyard Project. He's already been in contact, as he said during the the meet and greet, with officials on Vineyard. So he's somewhat helping in his current capacity, but we're saying, well, we still don't really want you in your official capacity if we were to elect you. We also have the traffic implications. I made a list of stuff that I'm more than happy to go through on, let's see. We have ordinances that we need to start working on. We've got, I think I've pretty much said it all. But I think it's become very clear that we need someone that is going to be the mayor for at least the next 3 years in the position. And I have only recently met Mr. Rael, but what I can say in the conversations that we've had is he's an adult, he's a big boy, and I think he can handle palindrome effectively and appropriately, and we don't need to be the ones trying to protect him.
Trustee Ranovich?
Yeah, and I disagree with what Trustee Kiefer just said, because Mr. Rael has told me he does not want to be mayor until the palindrome project is past us.
He changed his mind. We had the conversation at the meet and greet.
I saw the meet and greet, and he didn't change his mind. He said that the exact same thing at the meet and greet.
He said as soon as we confirm him, he will make that decision. He also said, because I told him.
I thought I had the floor.
Of course you do, George.
So until I hear it from him, I'd like to talk to him over the next month. I'm willing to, please, you don't have to be like that.
You're very welcome. Continue.
Excuse me, folks.
Don't do that. You're.
George, let's move on, please.
Say what?
Continue. Yeah, continue.
I'm done. I'm done. I'll talk to Mr. Rael over the next month.
The discussions, you know, and part of the, and it comes back to part of the palindrome issue, you know, and it's, again, we can't say that it's been the village that's been not prepared. It's been, unfortunately, palindrome that has not been prepared. Because they have requested additional time for, you know, to develop their documents, and that's put the process back for a period of time. And so but again, in talking with Mr. Rael, he understands that is in fact something ongoing. And what I think we could then do this evening is to agree to do the vote in January. And then once we do that, we can again propose the option for Mr. Rael. And he'd be able then to let us know what his start date might be. But again, he's indicated to me that February 1st would be fine for him. So again, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk with him, okay? Yeah. So at this point then, you know, if there, well, let me ask, if we, again, make a motion here to do the vote at the January BOT meeting, let me make that motion. And then have any further discussion from any of the members of the trustees? Any further discussions, anybody?
So I'm agreeable if somebody to vote on the motion of when we, as trustees, do the confirmation.
All right. Is there a second?
So I guess I just made the motion. Okay, so that will be my motion, yeah.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Of course I'll second it.
Okay. Okay, let me call the question. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Ranovich?
Yes.
Trustee Ranow, yes. Okay. So then we will do then the vote in January. Okay. New business. Discussion approval of the intergovernmental agreement between Bernalillo County and the Village of Los Ranchos to accept $50,000 funding from Bernalillo County to meet the match requirement of FEMA grant EMT 2021-BR 134. Administrator Avila.
Mayor and trustees, I'm asking our engineering consultant, Chuck Thomas, to come up in case there's any questions. But what we have here is a follow-through on an agreement that was done verbally, where the county was to come up with $50,000 of match. The village was all supposed to come up with money, and then MRGCD, Rio Grande Conservancy District, was also adding to the match portion of this grant, so that the levy could be studied. And this is so that we can invoice the county for their $50,000 and complete the study. Otherwise, we'd have to stop short. But I'll leave that, any questions with Mr. Thomas.
Excuse me. Is there a motion to approve the IGA?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the IGA.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And discussion from the governing body, Trustee Benavides.
Who is allowed to answer the questions if I have a question? Okay. All right. So this is a match. So I assume the total funding would be $100K?
Slightly more than that, Trustee Benavides. It's $108,000 in match. So the total grant from FEMA is $456,000. $348,000 is the federal portion of that, and then $108,000 is the match. That match is divided up three ways. $50,000 from Bernalillo County, $29,000 from the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District, and then $29,000 from the Village of Los Ranchos.
Okay. Thanks for explaining it. So, and this is to do a study only, right?
That is correct.
And the period of performance seems like it ends at December 31st, 2025?
Yes, trustee, that is the period of performance for this agreement. We expect the study to be completed prior to that date.
Okay, so we'll see a report by December 31st, 2025, prior to that, right?
Correct.
Okay. Let's see. So the scoping study is from Alameda Boulevard to Montano, right?
No, the scoping study for this is actually looking at the entire levee from the north diversion channel all the way down to the south diversion channel. The idea was to capture the levee between the two hardened points that connect it, with the idea that, evaluating a portion of the levee in the middle wouldn't really kind of resolve any of the issues. So, and that was part of the reason why Bernalillo County and MRGCD agreed to be funding partners with this, was so that we could get a report that covers not only the Village of Los Ranchos portion, but also looking at failure areas within the levee from those 2 points, between those 2 points.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why we stopped a little short to the south. I mean, Dietz Farm is south of that, right? That's in the village.
I believe that's included. So this will go all the way down to, I'm trying to think of where the south diversion channel kind of connects back into the Rio Grande, and I apologize, I can't think of where that.
About I-40?
It's south of that. I want to say it's down near Broadway area. Yeah, Rio Bravo. So it'll actually go from Rio Bravo up to Paseo del Norte, in essence, just slightly north of
Oh, okay. I'm not going to have any problem with this, but it's unclear for me because the agreement says perform a levee study, scoping study from Alameda Boulevard to Montano Boulevard. That sounds pretty specific.
You are correct, and that is a mistake on this, and that's something that can be corrected prior to the final signed version being
Okay,
provided.
thank you. Yeah, that's all I have.
I have no questions.
Good
Radovich?
I have no questions either.
All right.
Okay, I've got none either. Thank you very much.
Trustees. Have a happy holiday season.
Thanks, Chuck.
Okay, so let me kind of call the question then. So what we're talking about here is to approve the IGA. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Radovich?
Yes.
Trustee Rana, yes. Okay. Number B is a discussion approval of the Mayor Pro Tem letter to APS asking for deferral of implementation of the right size plan for consideration of community leader and resident concerns. I think we've heard some of the background on this already. I'd like to now open the floor for those who signed up to speak on this matter. And the first person is Jessica Knight. You'll have 2 minutes, please.
Yes.
I'm Jessica Knight. I live at 604 Charles Place. Thank you so much, members of the board and trustees and Mayor Pro Tem. I ask that you vote to approve the letter from Mayor Pro Tem Frank right now. I had 3 concerns about these changes that APS is proposing. So the possible merge of Taft to Taylor, and then the possible relocation of Coronado to your attention. Number 1, we have 2 elementary schools in Los Ranchos, Alvarado and Los Ranchos, within 1 mile from the Taft location. And both of these schools are not at capacity. So you're gonna move, they're proposing to move Coronado to, which is an elementary school, to the Taft location. And so then they're gonna do that shell game like trustee Trustee Benavides had said, so there could be a future issue with 3 elementary schools here. The other thing is the traffic concerns, which we've already gone through quite a bit of that. And then equity concerns. Schools that do not provide transportation excludes children from families that don't have the ability to, or resources to drive their children to and from school. Using private or charter school model to address drop enrollment may improve educational outcomes for some students, but it comes at the expense of those who are less privileged.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Nina Simbanya?
Good evening. Let me get my notes here. Thank you, members of the Board of Trustees and Mayor Pro Tem. I ask you to vote to approve the letter from Mayor Pro Tem.
Excuse me, can you please give us your, again, your full name and address? Oh.
Nina Simbanya, 627 Ranchitos Road, Northwest. Thank you, members of the Board of Trustees and Mayor Pro Tem. I ask you to vote to approve the letter from Mayor Pro Tem Frank Renau. I'm a resident of the village of Los Ranchos, and my child attends Alvarado Elementary School. We moved into our house during the pandemic. Calling it a fixer-upper would be a generous statement. The yard was dirt and weeds, so we slowly planted 1 tree, then a second tree, until we had a small orchard and a cottonwood canopy. Our neighbors were incredibly curious about us and would stop to chat with us to give words of encouragement to keep going, because that is what being a good neighbor looks like. Having a child at Los Ranchos is heavenly. We make it a point to nourish our community of neighbors who love to hear what our son is up to, if he has any eggs to sell, or just to stop for a chat with him at our little free library, because that is what being good neighbors looks like. On our block, we have 2 new babies who were born within months of each other. Right away, I began to talk to them about our neighborhood schools, because I'm a passionate supporter of public schools. And there would be nothing better than to see them bike to school, watch them participate in team sports, and beautify their school with colorful murals like we do at Alvarado, because that is what good neighborhoods look like. 2 weeks ago, I sat in a cafeteria full of parents and community members at Alvarado with shock and fear of what APS was telling us they were doing to our community in 2025. A meeting that took place only because our communities discovered for themselves that APS was moving Coronado Dual Language Magnet School to the current Taft Middle School location. They did not call a meeting to notify Alvarado community, a school that feeds into Taft, because this change, quote unquote, wouldn't affect us. We were told. Something APS later called a misstep. Well, here we are again. The lack of communication with the village is just another one of those missteps, I guess. This is an example of what bad neighbors do. Bad neighbors don't communicate.
The speaker's time has expired.
They disrespect members of the community and don't take responsibilities for their actions. Yet still, I am hopeful that APS can demonstrate they can be good neighbors by tabling or voting no to propose the right-sized Taft at APS board meeting tomorrow and collaborate with our community to find a resolution we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, Stephen McKernan?
Thank you. My name is Steve McKernan. I live at 5711 Eeks Court Northwest. I have handed out a presentation that's at your place. These are all APS documents. I also attended the Alvarado meeting and the meeting tonight and have heard that APS does not have revenues, but as you can see from their document, their revenues continue to rise. They don't go down. If you turn to the second page, what you will see is the decrease in enrollment. Again, this is from APS's budget document for 2024. And at the bottom, it says for every 1 student decline in enrollment, APS financial loss is $11,000. So you can see that they will lose 3,000 enrollees, but their revenues are going to increase. If you turn to the next one, budget summary with reserves, you will notice a couple lines from the bottom. Reserve, in accordance with APS's operational fund balance procedural directive of 5% minimum, they balanced the budget with $61 million of excess fund balance. So they do not spend everything they have in revenues. On the next page, you will see the net change in financial position. This is from the audit of 2023. If you look up down about 3 lines from the bottom, in 2023, they had an excess margin of $165 million. When I looked at the 2024 data, the audit is not released, but it looks like they will have another $60 million of positive margin. If you turn the page and look at the top line, the assets for 2023 are $646 million in cash, and that will increase another $60 million in 2024. I would endorse the letter by the
The speaker's time has expired.
Thank you.
Sarah Webb.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Webb Harris. I'm at 4905 Guadalupe Trail Northwest. Thank you, members of the Board of Trustees and Mayor Pro Tem. I ask you to vote to approve the letter from Mayor Pro Tem Frank Rhino. Thank you also to APS officials for being here. I'm a parent of 2 students at Alvarado, a wonderful dual language school that has been serving the community for decades and that is open to all students, not lottery-based. Both research and our lived experiences show that neighborhood schools are vital to the health and vibrancy of a community, and most of all, our children. Schools are at the heart of a community's sustainability, success, and social and cultural fabrics. North Valley families have been voicing to the district and board, we wish APS to invest in existing neighborhood schools, creating a clear pathway from elementary to middle to high school that is open to all students and that keeps students and families in the neighborhood. Creating a district full of choice-based schools weakens communities and exacerbates inequities across the city, not just in the North Valley, not to mention the infrastructure and traffic issues. The district and board have not responded adequately, instead bulldozing through a right-sizing proposal that causes vast disruption and that was not shared until recently. How is this responsible leadership? How is this collaboration? How is this fostering trust and good faith among your constituents? I urge APS and the board to go to bat for its students and families as promised. I have heard APS officials say it would be irresponsible to vote no at tomorrow's meeting. I ask, how is bullying through a proposal?
The speaker's time has expired.
How is bullying through a proposal that was not communicated and that the community opposes responsible? Thank you. And I urge a pause.
Megan Long.
Thank you, members of the Board of Trustees and Mayor Pro Tem. I ask you to vote to approve the letter from Mayor...
Excuse me, Megan, if you can give us your full name, please, and address.
Megan
Thank you.
Long, 505 Sandia Road. Thank you, the members of the Board of Trustees and Mayor Pro Tem. I ask you to vote to approve the letter from Mayor Pro Tem Frank Renow. I have read the letter from Mayor Pro Tem Frank. It was reassuring to receive strong support from a public official after feeling overlooked by many others. APS has not been transparent with information or communication concerning the right-sizing proposal, neglecting several concerns raised by the community.
They seem to prioritize a select group of students, excluding those who reside in the North Valley. APS persistently relies on their self-imposed limitations and self-created benchmarks to justify their actions. It has been incredibly draining to unravel their intricate webs of half-truths and blatant lies in the last 3 weeks. Their promises to allow a small number of students into the middle school program, which they claim is highly sought after, are rather weak. This amendment to their original proposal was made only after the community was made aware of their plan to exclude them. They are giving us scraps from a table we were not invited to. We are advocating for an investment in education in the North Valley that includes all children. Again, I ask you to vote to approve the letter from Mayor Pro Tem Frank Reno. Thank you.
Lauren Michaeljohn?
My name is Lauren Michaeljohn. I live at 5717 Guadalupe Trail, Northwest. Good evening, and thank you to the members of the Board of Trustees and to Mayor Pro Tem. I ask respectfully that you approve the letter from Mayor Pro Tem Reno to the Albuquerque Board of Education. I have 2 kids at Alvarado, and we're very happy there. We have a great community and a great school culture. We know that schools are at the centers of families' lives. We make almost all of our decisions as parents based on where our children go to school and what our children's school schedules are. They are also at the center of our communities. And to have such a drastic change proposed at Taft without our school and the surrounding community's input is unacceptable. And I also want to take a moment to acknowledge you guys and thank you for setting an example with your actions of what accountability in leadership looks like and responding to constituents' concerns in a reasonable amount of time. I really cannot thank you sincerely enough for allowing us to come here to have this opportunity. Thank you for supporting the families faced with this situation and for demanding better from APS. Have a nice evening, and thank you for your time again.
David Montoya?
Hello, David Montoya, 8831 4th Street, Northwest. I want to say, first of all, that I live in the district. I sent my 5 daughters to Ranchos, and we sent them all to Taft. They all got to walk. And I'd like to challenge, they walked to Taft as well. And I'd like to challenge APS, you know, if we want to be a magnet school, what's really I see happening is that I desperately try to get my kids to send my grandkids to public schools, and they give me a lot of reasons why not to. And what I'd like to see happen, and call it a magnet school, so I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but I do. What I'm thinking, why don't we make it a magnet school where people in the private schools will see the advantage of going to a wonderful school in their area and draw people out of the private schools back to our schools so we can make the community that people are talking about. And so I think that we can do a lot, and it's a great campus and tons could be done. You could have great sports teams. We could have a lot of emphasis in science or math or education, or whatever we choose, music, and it seems to be lacking. And so I think that the private schools and the charters are drawing some of our students away. And I'm challenging the point that we've lost 20,000, that we've lost, I forget the number, 3,000 students less or three, I forget the number actually right now. And I'm wondering if we could draw them back. Lastly, I'll take a few minutes to say, I'd like that our village to, I was holding bated breath that you were gonna give APS more than their 10 minutes, and you did. Nobody said a word. But somebody goes over a couple of minutes and we say something, it doesn't look friendly. And I wanna change that.
The speaker's time has expired.
There you go. Great timing.
Okay, this closes public comment. Before we move on to discussion from the board, is there a motion to approve the letter?
Sure, motion to approve the letter.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion from the governing body. Let me start with Trustee Benavides.
Well, as you as the public may have be picking up on this, you're going to have overwhelming support from us, and so traffic is a problem. No time given to the public to discuss this and bring it up to the board and with their concerns and exploring other ideas. These are all things that I think require community involvement. And I really hope that the vote is delayed until that can happen. We can have more public comment on what we can do with Taft. The only other thing I would add to this, Mayor Pro Tem, is based upon the presentation you heard today, is there anything you would like to add to the letter? And if the answer is no, I'm totally okay with that, yeah.
I think there could be a couple of things. One of the things I think that would add is that this letter was written prior to the time when APS, made the decision to at least open up Taft to students from Alvarado, okay, as well as other North Valley schools. So I think that would be important to add to it. And again, and I certainly appreciate their openness and willingness to sit down and talk with us. But I think that's probably the major one. The other I think issue that I would, or the other part that I would bring up is is to establish some kind of timeline for completion of the traffic study. I don't think we can let it just kind of fly by in spring and then get to the point in the summer where we don't have a defined traffic study. And the traffic study, I think, needs to not only include the traffic that are going to the schools in terms of numbers, but what is going to be the impact then on the roadway? Because those kinds of decisions may well affect what the village does in terms of the maintenance of those roads. So I guess those are the 2 points I think I'd probably add to it.
I'm in favor of adding your points, yes. Do we need to do like an amendment or something?
Mayor Pro Tem, trustees, if you can make clear those 2 added points so that all the trustees can be in agreement when it's.
Okay, I made the original motion, is that correct? All right, so you're asking for.
To make it clear as to what you wish to add to the letter.
I think if he, in substance, if he makes his points, I'll be good with that. If he wants to edit it later, that's okay. Okay. So do you want Frank to make his 2 points then, right now?
I think,
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem Trustee Benavides, I'm going to defer to Attorney Chappell. I think that it would be a great idea so that you're all clear on what you're voting on tonight.
Mayor Ronell and trustees, I think in a situation like this, it is appropriate to authorize the Mayor Pro Tem to send the letter and the basic substance that's there with whatever revisions that he believes are required or necessary based upon the input that he's received today, and give him that carte blanche authority to do that.
Yeah, I'm agreeable to that. Okay. So that's my comment. And you're going around with comments.
Sure, I'm going to my comments, okay. Trustee Kiefer.
I have no additional comment. I think what was talked about during the presentation, I think the responses that I got to some of my questions and with what the public is feeling, that at this time, we have to request a deferral.
Trustee Ranovich?
I don't have any problem with anything you've said in the letter or the 2 points you'd like to make beyond that. I'm searching for a way to include some of the information that one of our residents provided us in this list, because there's quite a bit of eye-opening data if all of this is correct. So I would encourage you to take a look at this and perhaps include something in the letter about the the discrepancy, it appears, between the money APS has and what they're able to do with it.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of final comments. I think that what this is all about is the ability to serve the needs of students and their families, you know, to include Taft, Coronado, and Alvarado, to ensure that there is quality education for all. You know, and I think what the community is speaking to is, you know, certainly focused around the best way to serve our students and their families. And at the same time, what is going to be the impact on community schools that have existed in the North Valley for certainly generations. And I know, you know, members of the community, and I've talked to a number of them who have been in the community much longer than I have, you know, can certainly appreciate, you know, the need to make some updates and changes to the schools. But it really is incumbent on, I think, us as leaders to ensure that, again, the quality is there and that we do not forsake the customs and traditions of the Valley in making those decisions. So let me then, were there any other comments, by the way, from other members of the board? No. Anybody?
Not for me.
Okay. Let me go back then. So the vote here is to approve the letter with the amendments that we had talked about. One amendment is to, again, recognize the opportunity for students from Alvarado to be able to attend Taft. Another is to identify then a way to ensure the traffic study gets met. A third, again, is to take a look at the data that is provided by one of our citizens and include that in the letter as well. Okay. Is there then a motion to approve the letter?
Motion to approve the letter with your amendments, with your additions. Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I don't, do we need to?
I don't think we have to do that again, do we?
Do I have to withdraw my original motion?
Mayor Pro Tem Trustees.
We don't have to do that.
Trustee Benavides made a motion on the original letter, and it was seconded by Trustee Radnovich.
Fine, okay.
So
We can then call the question.
Trustee Benavides should probably amend his motion to include those other factors.
Got it. Okay.
I will amend my motion to include the 3 points that you just brought up. Okay. And I trust you to do the proper editing, so it's fine.
Okay, so let me call then the roll call vote.
A second.
With oh, I'm sorry, is there a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay. So let me call then the roll call vote. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Yes.
Trustee Rano, yes, thank you. Okay. Number C is discussion and direction for administration to investigate and present purchase opportunities for irrigation water rights to include the process of purchase, understanding of value, and professional advice. Okay. So I'd like to call on, so let's see, hang on here. Okay, so Administrator Avila, would you like to talk to this, please?
Mayor Pro Tem, Board of Trustees, I'd like to have our Director, William Carlton, come up for any questions. Also want to see if Attorney Christina Bruff is available on Zoom.
Yes, good evening. Christina Bruff is here. What?
Thank you, Christina.
Okay.
This is water. Thank you, Christina. So this is for discussion and direction for administration to investigate and present purchase opportunities for irrigation water rights to include process of purchase, understanding of values, and that's water right values, and professional advice on how that would proceed. William Carlton's not here, but one of the things that we looked at in his plan for 2025 is to make sure that there's sufficient water rights for the Agri-Nature Center, and that's on the order of about 20 acre feet. The Anderson Fields has irrigation, but the Agri-Nature Center does not have surface water rights or water. They relied on the MRGCD lease and agreement there for watering previously. With the state plan, there is a cutback on irrigation, as well as some other initiatives across New Mexico. So obtaining water rights is imperative to make sure that agriculture can continue at the Agri-Nature Center. And so with that, we asked that we were able to get Christina Bruff, which is an attorney for water, to help us out. And just want to walk through the process so that the board understands, the community is not surprised, and that we are trying to proceed with securing water rights to keep Agri-Nature Center agricultural. So with that, I think it might be the right process to let Christina introduce herself, and then if there are any questions from that, you can bring those up.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Board of Trustees. I am outside counsel on water rights just recently, and I very much apologize for not being there personally tonight. I traveled outside of state and am under the weather and was advised from urgent care not to attend the meeting, and so I will be at the next meeting and any special meeting held in the interim. As has been identified, the process of purchase of irrigation water rights and the understanding of values is on the agenda. There are recent, to just tee it up, there are recent opportunities for the Agri-Nature Center, ANC. I think after discussion with Mr. Chappelle and Mr. Avila, the Board of Trustees should continue to further discussion, investigate water right opportunities. I think this was also highlighted in the discussions with the Wagner Farms, Big Jim Farms this evening. It's of utmost importance. And it's also consistent with the mission statement for the village. And the goals would be to investigate get a timeline that meets with the village's opportunities. There's a draft purchase agreement that's being discussed for approximately 20 acre feet consumptive. There's another opportunity for a lease with the state that the Board of Trustees may know about. We're available to answer any questions, provide feedback. Our goal would be to add to some language on the proposal, the seller's proposal on the purchase agreement that would further protect the village's interest vis-a-vis its water rights portfolio. And then our office has also been tasked with creating and identifying a portfolio of the village's water rights for its future use, and working with the OSE to make sure that what is filed with the Office of the State Engineer is both correct and appropriately documented with the Office of the State Engineer. Our office believes that this merits further discussion, perhaps sooner than later, as we understand. And I think, with that, I think I will stand for questions and follow-ups. But we do have a draft purchase agreement, a potential lease, and these are recent opportunities that we're needing to continue, hopefully before the beginning of the January meeting. And I've listened very carefully to all the presentations this evening, and was particularly enamored of the farming. The more people involved in small farming workshops, the water and water underpins it all, and also the Main Street program and the Chili Festival. Yes, we are big into that. So with that, I will defer to Mr. Avila and any questions that the Board of Trustees or Mayor Pro Tem may have.
Okay, so at this point, we can begin some discussion among the board. Okay?
We don't need a motion?
Yes.
At this point, do we need a motion at this point? No, we don't have to do that, do we?
This is
and so obviously the drafts are confidential. I don't want to go into too much discussion about price points. If you have questions, we can talk about that. But the drafts are out there. They need to be worked on. I have been advised that time is of the essence. I believe that's true. And but for general purposes, perhaps the trajectory here is just to keep moving on what's already in play, and then in anticipation of a January meeting or a special meeting in the interim, perhaps after next week, after the holiday, where this can keep going forward on the water rights, because I've been advised that it is of the essence, and I believe that is true.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, Board of Trustees, didn't have enough time to get you the information in a closed session so that you can review a property purchase, which is water rights. So we anticipate get that to you. What we need here is direction to pursue this action as far as finding out more, getting that information back to you. And then in the next meeting, we could have a closed session where we can discuss, and then actually we might be closer to a purchase at that point.
Agreed. Yes, thank you.
So at this point, though, we can have some questions from the Board of Trustees. Okay. So, Trustee Benavides?
I think a closed session would be a wise idea, so I think we need to explore this, obviously. I want to say about the memo that's in our packet. I'm going to support this, but I would say that the argument about flood irrigation recharging the aquifer might be a weak one, because all we're talking about is transferring water rights. So it would have been recharged someplace else. But I don't, you can leave it there, I don't care. I'm going to be supportive. I want to be clear as to how much we're looking for in terms of water. Did you say 20 acre feet? Did somebody say that? So the.
Yeah,
so the-
let me bring this up really quick. Hold on a second. Yeah, so there's two opportunities. There's a water rights, a potential water rights purchase, and that would be approximately 22 consumptive, and then a potential lease from the state that's in accordance with a settlement that the Board of Trustees knows about with Department of Transportation.
So not all of the original 20 acres can be farmed, right? Because we have buildings and parking and that sort of thing, right, on there. And this.
That would just be that would just be a transfer.
Yeah, and the other thing, all to be worked out. Okay, we're not figuring this out tonight, but I think diversity and the source of water might be smart. I think surface water is I think plants really like surface water. But last summer you couldn't grow chili with that because you're lucky to get it every 2 weeks, and I even went a month without water. So you're not going to grow crops. But there's a chili farm that didn't go up this past summer, but it has gone up and past. It's kind of a U-pick-em, but it's a smaller couple acres. But there's a well on Apple Valley, and it's a huge casing. It's like 10-inch casing, and they can actually flood with that. Now, I think well water, if you have a shallow well, I'm going to be too technical, so I'll end this. But it could be less desirable water. But if it's the proper well, if it's done where you get better water, it's not so bad. We shouldn't close the door to that. Let's consider all our options and at a later point in time. That's all I have.
Yeah, and thank you for that comment. And that was briefly discussed last week on our teleconference, and I completely agree. Yeah, all options are on the table, and the well, and I'm getting a better understanding, still gathering the documents on the village's well. But this one would be an irrigation surface transfer.
Trustee Kiefer?
I understand the need. Look forward to the details.
Yes, thank you.
Trustee Radovich?
I support this as well. I would like to add two things that might, and I'm in agreement on the flood irrigation recharging. It does recharge, but only for the immediate area. The two things I'd like you to consider to add into your argument is one, that it adds to agricultural sustainability, and then secondly, that it adds to habitat sustainability through the vegetative growth for that habitat. And you may be familiar with farms that try to integrate habitat into agriculture to increase the pollinator population. And so I think that's another point worth adding. That's it.
100%, yeah. And I think, the previous presentation touched upon that in a very nice way. The big farm shipping.
I would certainly agree, and I think we would need to move forward with this. We certainly need to understand where we stand, and so at this point, then, let me ask, Mr. Chappell, do we need a vote in order to move forward, or can we just direct the administrator to move forward on this?
I don't believe, I believe it's just a discussion topic the way it is. But I thought perhaps some clarification we had in terms of exactly what was, when Ms. Bruff was sort of assigned, since I did that discussion. There are three things that the village has tasked Ms. Bruff's firm with doing that you may not have understood from the memo. First, there is a concern and I think that Mr. Avila has been through it, that the village owns a great deal of water rights in different places, but the records are not clear as to exactly what is owned and whether or not all of that is properly documented with the OSC and other places. So one of the projects is to, in fact, document the rights that the village has, whether they're properly documented, points of diversion, and that kind of thing. The next one is that if related to the Del Norte open space, when that settlement was done with the state, there was a willingness to provide on a lease basis about 9 acre-feet of water for that location. And so one of the things to be done is to put that in place so that that water is available. Mr. Avila has been talking to the state. They appear to be willing to do it and provided some forms. So Ms. Bruff would be going through that. So those are 2 separate ones. The last one is the one that's getting the attention, and that is the prior consultant for the village identified these water rights that were potentially available for purchase and provided some documents. There was about 32 acre-feet of diversion and about 21-something acre-feet of consumptive use. And so that would be the one that's involved in a purchase of water rights to change the point of diversion to the Agri-Nature Center or somewhere else. And that's the one, so those are the 3 projects, and I just thought perhaps the memo and the clarification could be clarified as to what the project is. The one that's probably easiest, of course, is the state side. The one that you need closed meetings on is to discuss the potential purchase of the water rights that would be changed to the point of diversion in the village.
Okay.
And that would require a financial commitment from the village.
Well, I'd also, mirror what Trustee Benavides had just suggested, and that is a closed session for us.
She did.
In order for us to discuss it and get some further detail and some education on what we're looking at.
Yep.
Okay. But if there aren't any other comments, anybody? Okay. I think we need to move ahead and let's authorize the Administrator Avila, to continue to work on this, and then at appropriate time for us to schedule that closed meeting. Okay. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
I will be there next time.
Okay, so let's get into financial business. Discussion and approval of the November 24 cash report. Treasurer Fisher?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and trustees. Before you is the cash report for November 30th, 2024. The ending balance at November 30th, 2024 is $12,758,084.83, which is an increase of $155,737.29 for this month. Year-to-date excess over revenues is $329,737.13, with a few unusual or significant items for you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So is there a motion then to approve the November 2024 cash report?
I'll make a motion to approve the November 24 cash report.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion from the governing body. Trustee Benavides.
Just a moment. I think I have none, but let me just scroll through this to see if I highlighted anything. I have none.
Trustee Kiefer?
I didn't have any.
Trustee Ranovich?
I just have a question, just one. The Adams Crow Law Firm, isn't that the firm that is defending past Mayor Lopez. What is that for?
Mayor Pro Tem and Trustee Radnovich, that is for current litigation in the village, but it is not for the, any defending of past mayor.
Trustee Radnovich, the Adams Crow firm is representing the village in 2 foreclosure cases, one in the Ross case, one in the Blatchley case. And the village is actually foreclosing on a lien. In a mediation about 2 weeks ago, we agreed from the village perspective to take a payment of $50,000 to give the mortgagee priority to their mortgage. We had a question as to priority. So we settled the village position. It's not been documented for a payment of $50,000 on our lien and subordinated the rest behind the first mortgage. The other one is still pending. One of the defendants, Ms. Blatchley, has filed bankruptcy, so that's going to slow things down even further. But they are representing the village in those cases and have experience in the foreclosure business.
I see. Thank you, Mr. Chappell. I have no other questions.
I just have just a quick question, just for clarification. There is an entry here in the check register to Bernalillo County Planning, I guess Planning and Zoning, is it? Or I don't know exactly what it is, but it's 25 JPA payment for clerical services. Are we talking JPA? Are we talking about the Joint Powers Agreement, or what's that about?
Mayor Pro Tem Trustees, yes, it's a joint power agreement with Bernalillo County for services for all of our construction and planning and zoning. And so they house all the records and they do services for us, some of the services that we don't do here in the office. And so that is a JPA we have with them and we have had with them for many years in the past. For that, it's a one-time annual payment of $17,500.
Okay, all right. And then does the village incur any additional cost when, let's say, one of their engineers comes out to take a look at a project and to permit it or whatever?
Mayor Pro Tem, Trustees, I do not believe so. I've never seen an invoice come through for anything like that.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem, I had one more thing
Sure,
that
go
I
ahead.
wanted to. And this is not financial. It's actually something that's in the finances that cued me. Parametrics working on the Chavez multi-use trail, it seems to me that there's a lot of dissent about what we're doing on that within the village. And I'm wondering why they're still working on that project, because we had a meeting about it and there were quite a few people that were questioning whether we even needed that trail. And so I'd like for us to question that as one of our actions. One of the studies we're doing, because it just, when I saw the $15,000 to them, nothing against Parametrics at all. They're a good firm, but there was so much upsettedness and question about the project itself. I was kind of surprised they were still doing it. So that's probably a question for Maria or John, for you, I guess. I just kind of was shocked that they were still working on it.
Trustee Avila, would you care to comment? I know Maria is not available, but could you comment on that, please?
Mayor Pro Tem, trustees, please don't assign me a trusteeship. Too much work. So Chavez project is still in the planning stage. So Parametrics is part of that, and that's through funding that's already been set up. So part of the conversation was go ahead and change from just a design that has a walkway, bicycle way, to also deal with the road and reconstruction there. So that is part of the change that's happened after our walk on Chavez to understand where, where the project status was a couple months ago. So Parametrics is still working on that design and being paid. Is this through which grant funding can you tell from the?
Mayor Pro Tem, trustees, administrators, so it is capital appropriation. The capital appropriation number is A302410, and it is money that we received from the state. Is that the information you're looking for?
I just, there was a lot of dissension about it, so it's I mean, we can tell them, let's listen to the public and talk about this some more. I'm just suggesting that they not just keep working, but that they listen to what they heard at that public meeting. So that's all I'm suggesting. I'm not suggesting we turn back the money or anything like that, just questioning it. Thanks.
I've actually had a similar question as well. And, and again, there's sentiment on both sides. But I think that, to then come up with a design that, that does not meet the conditions and requirements of village residents, I think is a problem. And I think we already ran into that with the design of the old village hall, where residents were overwhelmingly opposed to the design that came out of it. So if there is a way to, to have parametrics, be available to discuss, some, the concerns. I know that they have put some of those into into their current design, but at this point, though, it's I'm not clear exactly at what point of the design process they're in right now, and that's something we can find out. So I will discuss with Administrator Avila, and we can find some answers.
Thanks.
Okay. I don't have any further questions, comments at this point. So let me again call the question to approve the 2024 cash report. Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Radovich?
Yes.
Trustee Rano, yes. Okay. Motion is carried. Discussion approval of resolution 2024-12-01. Resolution recommending budget revisions related to the general fund and the special revenue fund for the village of Los Ranchos. And let me turn it over to CFO Silva.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, trustees. Before you is resolution 2024-12-01. And this is for a budget adjustment request. What this budget adjustment request is to revise the following line items. Number one is to move money from our bank account to the LGIP account in the amount of $500,000. That is just to take advantage of the high yield that is happening right now and to gain interest income there. The second item is to add a revenue line item to the 299 fund for the National Fish Wildlife Federation reimbursement grant. This is to increase that revenue line item to encompass the full amount of reimbursements for that grant, because we will be expending that full grant this fiscal year. The third line item is to increase and to also add a line item for water rights, to purchase water rights. This is to increase that line item from $0 to $500,000. The fourth line item for this is to an increase to attorney's fees and settlements in the amount of $87,500. That is to cover the settlement that was paid this month. And lastly, the fifth line item is to increase the supply line item in 299 in the amount of $55,000, and that is that goes along with the second line item. This is to expend the National Fish and Wildlife Federation grant that we have. It expires in March, so we will be expending the full funds this fiscal year. And all of these line items are brought before you so that we can be in compliance with state statutes and not overexpend a budget line item.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution 2024-12-01?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-12-01.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion from the governing body. Mr. Benavides.
Yes. So, you know, I feel like we may be showing our hand here with water rights. We want to increase it by $500K. I'm not quite sure where that $500K comes from is a problem. And I'm not sure if $500K is the right number. It seems excessive, but I don't, maybe that's what we need to talk about in a closed session.
Mayor Pro Tem, Board of Trustees, it's to make sure there is a budget to spend, should we have the opportunity to spend, and that the permission to spend is there from the Board of Trustees. So it's making sure that those funds are available to go ahead and make a purchase. They come from our savings in the local government investment fund. So that's where that comes from, is that a savings to be spent on an investment of water, which one of the arguments is that's going to go up in value. So from a dollar perspective, you should be okay. From a water perspective, it'll help us with the Ag Center.
I mean, but if I look at the cash report, it seems like 98% of our budget's encumbered, meaning it's spoken for. So I still don't understand where we get the $500K. Now, I will add this as food for thought. To me, this is an improvement of open space. We do have open space bond money left, which puts us in debt. But I think that would be appropriate for that money if we were to choose to go in that direction. But yeah, I still have a problem with $500K right now for water rights.
CFO Silva, would you have a comment about that at all in terms of where this money would be extracted from?
Mayor Pro Tem, Trustees, so the money would come, as he said, from the local investment pool out of our general fund. The general fund is where we would take that money from. And as you mentioned, Trustee Benavides, on the encumbered funds, yes, we have them fully encumbered, but that is not necessarily that they will all be spent this year. The reason we encumber those is because we know that there are different items that could vary throughout the year, but for the $9.4 million we have in our general fund right now, our budget for this year for expenditures is about $4 million, $4.3 million. So that does not also, when you're looking at those numbers, you also have to consider the revenue coming in each month. So some of that revenue coming in each month is what's covering some of those expenses as well. And that's why we've seen our cash grow every year by a certain amount, because we aren't expending more than we are bringing in during that fiscal year. So we do have reserves.
You're questioning the actual number, aren't you?
I'm questioning the number. It seems excessive. But at that high amount, I do worry about where we're pulling that money out of and what it will do with less now going forward. And was it really encumbered to begin with? I'm questioning that.
Trustee Kiefer?
So this makes complete sense to me. Neil, I guess my only question is, remind me, Tammy, when the new GRT also goes into effect January 1st, correct?
Mayor Pro Tem Trustee Kiefer, that is correct. We will not see that revenue come through though till March because we are 2 months behind. So our March numbers will reflect the changes that we make January 1.
And GRT goes into the general fund?
There's a split, 15% goes into the road fund and the other 85% goes into the general fund.
Okay. And have we done any projections yet on what we anticipate the increased GRT to do to our cash surplus over the next, 2027 fiscal year?
So Mayor Pro Tem Trustee Kiefer, we have looked at some numbers. Just looking at the increase, we're looking at about 700,000, right around 700,000 increase for the year once that goes into effect. However, we have also looked at upcoming expenses that will be increasing. And so when you take those two into consideration, you know, the full 700 may not be what we see as an increase, but just increasing the GRT is a projection of about 700,000 in additional revenue for a full fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question, Mayor Pro Tem. The NFWF reimbursement, where is that going? What are we using it for?
So Mayor Pro Tem Trustee Radnovich, trustees, that is a grant that we received for the Agri-Nature Center, and that's for improvements to the Agri-Nature Center.
So it's habitat improvements, I'm assuming.
I'm not exactly sure of what the list is of what they are doing, but yes, it's improvements to the Agri-Nature Center that have to be approved through the grant. So that's something that William would probably be able to answer exactly what it's going towards.
Thanks. That's it.
So to clarify, on this resolution, what we're asking for here is to, let me see again, is to recommend the budget revisions, and one that is, that's been brought up by Trustee Benavides revolves around the $500,000 for the water rights. So what we're doing now is to put money aside so that we can potentially use that money in order to purchase water rights. Is that correct?
Mayor Pro Tem, that is correct for that line item, yes.
Okay. So at this point then, we're just approving not just, but we are approving the adjustment and to move those funds over so that they are available.
Mayor Pro Tem, that is correct. It is by state statute a requirement so that we don't overexpend a budget. That's why we're bringing it to you first, so that if this becomes available and we do proceed, we have the money available to process, and it doesn't take the time to bring it back again and cause a 30-day lag to the next meeting.
Okay, very good. So we already have a motion to approve the resolution. Is there any further discussion from the board? Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sort of kind of torn right now, but because I do want to see us find water rights. I just wish I had a little bit more information as to how we're going to balance the budget with, with all these big bar adjustments, and what programs or what line items it's coming out of, right? I struggle with that, actually. I would prefer to defer that one particular item. I don't know if anybody else has an appetite to do that.
May I ask a question, Mayor Pro Tem? If we don't spend all of that money, then you would just be asking for another adjustment in the future to put it back into the general fund?
Mayor Pro Tem, Trustee Radnovich, trustees, so if we make a bar for 500,000 and we only spend 400,000, the other 100,000, we will not do a bar to come back. It would just stay there, and it would, in the next budget, we would put it wherever we want to. If we want to move it back into LGIP, we can do that, but it would stay there. We could come back and move it back into LGIP, but we only are required to do a bar to ensure that we don't over expend. So if we spend less, it's not a requirement by the state for us to come back and move it back over, and that's an issue. We could do that, however, in most cases, other line items, same thing. If we don't spend everything that we plan to spend in supplies, it just stays there and it gets back into our cash reserve at year end, and we create our budget based on our final ending cash balance.
I see. So just one more question about that, because I wondered about that figure too. Is there something is there some kind of multiplication that we did, some kind of analysis that we did to get to that $500,000 figure, or was it just pulled out of the air?
Mayor Pro Tem,
I think that's what you're
trustees, I believe that there was a calculation done. It was not done by myself. But based on what it's going for, each of the.
That's what we think we'll need.
Correct.
Got it.
I just did a quick calculation in my head. 20 acre feet, maybe $20,000 per acre feet. That's 400,000. Another 100,000 for attorney fees. I don't know.
So that's pretty close. Okay.
Yeah.
No more questions.
So let me then call the question. Again, this is to approve resolution 2024-12-01. Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer.
Yes.
Trustee Yadovich.
Yes.
Trustee Rano, yes. Okay. Okay. So let me ask, in terms of informal discussion.
Yeah, my favorite.
So we're at that point of the agenda, okay.
We're already here.
Trustee Benavides, okay.
Yes. Okay, yeah, I think we already discussed Taft enough. We discussed water rights enough. Well, in the reports, I think they're going to come afterwards. I don't know if we're going to actually go through them, but I did see something about $775K for Osuna, second to fourth. In the prior item, I was arguing that's too much money. Now I'm going to argue that's too little money. I don't know what you can do for $775K. And actually, I'm just giving you a heads up. We're not going to vote on that today. But, it seems like that's a over-constrained problem as well. The other thing is that I would want to bring up is, so I understand the village issued a permit for the FU sign on Rio Grande Boulevard. That seems very unfortunate. I think the public deserves to know that. I just found out recently that the village issued a permit. So if I'm incorrect, tell me I'm incorrect. But it sounds, Attorney Chappell, did you look at it legally and decide that that was a fine thing to do?
Mayor Pro Tem and Trustee Benavides, I don't know that I made a decision that it was the right thing to do. If there were particular issues that I may have addressed, I'll be happy to address those.
We can, yeah, it's late and I don't want to get into a long discussion, but it felt like a terrible mistake to me that happened. And I think the public deserves to know that that's why it's there.
Can I just chime in before?
Yeah, please do, yeah.
It sends a terrible message to people driving up and down Rio Grande that we're saying F you to anyone. Aside from the poor taste, if that's the way to put it, why are we allowing a sign like that to stay up? I feel the same way. I drive by it at least twice a day, and it just makes no sense to me.
Okay, I can address that. The permit apparently, I don't think I had anything to do with, Mr. Avila, was issued by the planning department on an application for a political campaign sign.
But there's no politics going on right now.
There's no election going on.
But, so the problem is that there was no information provided as to the candidate or anything else. The other problem is a political campaign sign has to come down 15 days after the election, but it's not there. But this political campaign sign erroneously allowed or requested a permit through December 31. So with that background, saying that the permit was probably improperly issued because it was misrepresented, the question is how to get rid of it. There is a permit for a sign of some sort through the end of the year. The process to go about doing it is to probably require removal of the permit because it violates community standards, which is the test in New Mexico. And that has been kicked round and round and round. And now we have a new sign out there that says, the law firm is guilty of malpractice and all of that. My advice, my recommendation, I don't think anybody's made a decision, is that we wait until the permit expires at December 31.
This year.
Right now, before we take legal action so we don't have to get involved in this dispute as to whether or not he can rely upon a permit was issued by the village, which is the same argument the Palindrome made. They relied upon something done by the village. The court said it was not any good and put it clearly in terms as the sign is now illegal for any purpose. It violates community standards and we go after it in that way without getting into the wrangle of whether or not there are some vested rights based on an erroneously issued permit. But I think it was issued without anyone's, my knowledge anyway.
And it doesn't violate size standards or height standards or anything like that?
I think at this point in time,
it's
for any
better to
kind of a
just wait
sign,
till the
it violates
31st.
all the sign ordinances, okay?
Take it down immediately then.
What's that?
I mean, if it violates the ordinance, why don't you just take it down? Why don't the village just take it down?
You don't want to get into a legal battle.
Okay.
Well, we're just adding fuel to a fire, which is, I think somebody's enjoying kindling. And so my preference would be, and I'm not talking, giving the advice, is when that permit expires, then you go after it on all fours without any vagueness as to whether or not the sign was permitted or not permitted. That's all I have figured out.
Got it. Well, so I'll just finish up. So we heard Bob Martinez talk about doing some volunteer work to help, to form a committee and look at our public property that the village owns and what can we do with it. We should encourage that kind of behavior. And I know the village is now wanting to be more formal about committees in terms of like minutes and open public. So, I don't know if when we cross the threshold of needing that formality in terms of committees, but to me, it seems like, Keep Los Ranchos Rural started as a grassroots effort, and now we have somebody helping out with the they've already did the C1 and conservation development project. Now they're working on VC, I understand. So that we got a lot of return on the investment there for having a grassroots committee just start up. And so I would encourage the village to look for opportunities when people want to volunteer to help to allow them to do that without causing too much heartache with formality. And I'll just finish. One more item. In a public comment, someone complained about the intersection of 4th and Vineyard, and that the that corner there has been eroded and people, I guess, to the extent where people can drive over it now. We should fix that. We probably can, I don't see why it needs to be a major expense to put a curb or whatever was once there to make it whole again, right, as once was. I mean, they're already going through enough already, and that's probably a little thing that we can do for them. And I will end by saying happy holidays, and a friend of mine used to always say, have a merry one and a happy one. But I'll go ahead and say the whole thing. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Trustee Kiefer?
I just had a couple things. One was, one of the things I am going to work with, hopefully, a new mayor on, that I've really kind of saw the need for, especially with the closure of Osuna with Pelodrome, is making sure that we have an ordinance that collects impact fees. I think as construction happens, as people are displaced, traffic has to go around, we need some way to collect impact fees to be able to mitigate those impacts. And the second thing, I think, to what Tom Donilon mentioned in public comment, and I think I've said it till I was blue in the face, and I still encourage Mayor Pro Tem right now to do something regarding is, again, that audit regarding the Pelodrome project. Not talking a financial investigation to try to do a gotcha. I'm talking about a process audit. What was the RFP? What was actually delivered on? What was the whole step-by-step process? I've said it from as long as I could. I continue saying it, and it keeps falling on deaf ears. So I implore you to get that going before, because I keep hearing the same sentiment across this table is we don't want Mr. Rael involved in anything Pelodrome. So let's wrap that stuff up and protect him from it, but give the people what they need.
Trustee Ranovich?
What I wanted to talk about is, and then this is just brief, what I talked about last month, only a little bit further. When Maria first came to us with the traffic study that Parametrics, I think, is completed at this point, I voiced concern over the fact that it was really an engineer's traffic report on what exists. It didn't really give us anything to improve our situation with. And so I really wish the village would take a stand on how we deal with traffic from the perspective of equestrians, pedestrians, bicyclists and alternative vehicles, cars, all of it. And come up with ways that take what Fred did and showed us last month to the next level. Because I think we really need to start protecting ourselves more than we have up until now. And that study may have given us a little bit of data, but we could have gotten most of that data from the COG. So I think we need to do a comprehensive, not traffic or transportation, well, not a traffic study, but a transportation study to give us the tools to be able to make improvements that stop people that run stop signs, people that are going too fast through the village, people that pass me regularly on Rio Grande if I go 25 or even 30. I saw someone run the stop sign at Eakes Road at about 40 miles an hour yesterday on my way to work and didn't even hesitate. And that's a stop sign. right in front of JT's house. So we've just got to go there at some point, and I'll keep talking about it, but, and there may not be any money we have to be able to do something like that, but I don't think we need the standard engineering study that every engineer in town could do. I think we need to get a different kind of perspective from a planner or someone that does transportation planning, not just traffic engineering. My 2 cents.
I wanted to also kind of applaud the work that Fred is doing. I mean, he's given us some very local recent data. And I think the next step certainly is for us to determine what we want to do to move it along. And again, we've talked and planning to do some road calming measures on Ortega and El Pueblo, but I think that's just the start. We also need, I think, to investigate more fully, cameras, and I know that Paseo has been a problem for a lot of people who are living in the area. And and again, when you have over 90,000 cars a day that are using Paseo, it becomes very difficult to do any kind of enforcement very well. So we need to come up with some other methods, and Fred's investigating some of those, and I'm sure we're going to follow up on it.
Well, and Mayor Pro Tem, now we have Chuck Thompson, who's done that study that also gives us fodder to go back to the NMDOT and talk to them, take it to the next level. So
the other thing I just wanted to point out is that we do have, again, for all the community to recognize, we have a legislative town hall at 6 p.m. Monday, December 30th, and hope that people would be able to attend. Scheduled for 2 hours. It would be with Representative Dayhockman Vihil, Senator Katie Duhigg, and Senator Debbie O'Malley will be here at the village hall. The other is to just alert people again to the Route 66 celebration we're going to have on the 29th that begins at 12 noon. We're going to be assembling at the parking lot on 4th Street, and there'll be some other word coming on that in order to encourage people to come out for that. Okay. But that's all I've got to say. And so let me kind of turn it over. I know, department reports are available, in the packet, and also certainly you can talk to Administrator Avila. Do you have any kind of, comment on the department reports at this time?
Mayor Pro Tem, Board of Trustees, we do have a packet of reports, in essence, talking about what's happened in 24 and what will be happening in 25. The Village Vision magazine has to go in now and will be published early January to mid-January. So it has some of the same reports in there. We did want to mention that we regret to report that we're seeking a planning and zoning director with Makita Hill no longer here. And we're working on those postings as well as other department postings. And again, there is a full report here, and please contact me for any other information.
Okay, thank you very much. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, in favor, we're gone. Okay, we're ending at 9:32.
Pretty early.
Pretty early.
Tammy, good to see you.